It's time for the Unnamed Indie Comic Show with Skip and Ash. Talking about indie comics. Oh yeah. Talking about indie comics. Oh yeah. It's time for the Unnamed Indie Comic Show with Skip and Ash. It's time for the Unnamed Indie Comic Show with Skip and Ash. Talking about indie comics. Oh yeah. Talking about indie comics. Oh yeah. It's time for the Unnamed Indie Comic Show with Skip and Ash. It's time for
3, 2, 1. What is going on, everybody? Happy holidays. It is the season. What is it? The reason for the season. It's Christmas time. Everyone knows. Hard to avoid. We are on the last episode of 2021 for the Unnamed Indie Comic Show. I am Ash. Joining me, as always, is my co-host, partner in crime, Skip and Tosh. Thank you for being here. It's been a wonderful 25 episodes that we've done. Can you believe that?
Wow, yeah, time flies. That's awesome.
Isn't that crazy? And that's not even counting the Hangout episodes, of which there are 5. So technically, this is kind of like a 30th episode, but if you count more, like legacy numbering.
I wasn't going to bring that up, but since you did. Yeah, I mean, that.
Right. I don't even know how many we're on. Like, they're in the teens on that, I think. So, man, good to be here. Merry Christmas to you. Merry Christmas to everyone in the audience that are listening to us live.
Merry Christmas.
Man, I was waiting for that. Jeez, it took you so long. I am celebrating tonight with a little bit of Patron tequila, Patron Anejo. Treated myself earlier in the year. The liquor store nearby had a big bottle. It's 50% off. I normally can't afford it. It's too much. And I was like, 50% off. So I was like, you know what? I'd have a little Christmas drink to celebrate the coming of the new year and the birth of our Lord coming here in a couple days. Skip, what are you doing to celebrate tonight?
I don't know, but I was born before Jesus, so my birthday's tomorrow.
Whoa.
And, how am I celebrating? Here with you, Ash, and here with all of the people in the chat. That's how I'm celebrating.
Oh, there we go. That's a good way to celebrate, if you ask me. So thank you guys for everyone that's here listening to us live. If you're here listening to us after the fact, thank you also. But if you're here in the chat, that's always a big inspiration to us. We don't do this show to have huge numbers. We're not narcissists. We like doing this because we just love talking about comics, honestly. And this is just a good way to kind of do it. And we love the fact that you're going to be here tonight. Tonight's going to be a slightly different episode than we normally do. We're going to feature a comic because it's kind of like the anchor of what we do. Which tonight's comic is Righteous Thirst for Vengeance. We've done the first 2 issues. We're going to continue on. I got to tell you, Skip, this book is steadily becoming my favorite comic that is on the shelves. How are you feeling about it?
I'm feeling very strongly about it. It continues to be one of the most consistent books that I buy each month. And it's definitely up there. If I took inventory, I could see this book definitely being top 10. Easily, arguably could be top 5. You know how much I love Ice Cream Man. It's hard to take the top spot away.
Hey, just I want to say just being in that same company is an honor.
I mean, if you're getting anywhere close to Ricardus and W. Maxwell Prince, you're doing pretty good. And hey, Chris O'Halloran colors both books, so
There we go.
there you go.
So that is that's what we're going to be talking about tonight. For those of you who may not have listened to us before, kind of what we do, we just talk about indie books. We're a celebration show. We're not really a review show, so don't come here expecting any hard critical analysis or anything like that. A lot of this is just books we love and we want to share. If we don't really like the book, it's really not going to get talked about on the show. We're just, there's other times. We just want to be upfront with that. It is recorded live on the YouTubes in a podcast style format, so there's not a ton of visuals. It's meant to be a little bit more talk radio podcast style, but we thank you for listening. Hopefully that frees you up to participate and listen in the show without having to, designate your eyeballs. So you can be washing dishes, working on the car, mowing the lawn. Maybe you're at work, doing whatever case. Hopefully this can bring you some entertainment on that level. And please participate in the chat. Tonight, the second half of the show, this is going to be kind of a hybrid of our Hangout stream, also doing the feature. So we'll be a little bit more participatory in the audience, which we normally aren't because it's the show format. But what I was trying to get at because I'm so long in the tooth, I'm sorry, Skip, is we love hearing you guys and seeing the chat. Even if we're not necessarily commenting directly, we're seeing it and it's informing us where the conversation should go. And sometimes, we'll take that where if it's a topical thing, like we're talking about our favorite books this week and you're posting yours, we'll bring that to on air and mention that too, because it's not just about us. So that being said, then we'll move on. One of the things we started doing on the show, and I like it, Skip likes it, hopefully you like it, we talk about today is New Comic Book Day. So we talk about the new comics that came out today, kind of like a virtual store, if you will, if we're going to the shelf and we're looking at the new books, and we're just kind of just talking about what excites us. As if we were in the store right now, we walked in and was like, what's on the shelf? What's drawing our attention? What we're maybe buying? What we're thinking about maybe buying, or we're curious if other people read it or not. Whatever strikes our eye, this is how it goes. We use the site leagueofcomicgeeks.com, which also there's an app, and we filter it all out for just independent books. And here we are displaying 14 issues in order of the popularity by the users of the site. And Skip, I don't think I have this set so you can see them. Share my screen with you. I'm always bad at doing this, so there we go. Whoop, go.
Right.
And here are the some of the top interested new books. Obviously, Righteous Search for Vengeance will be one we're talking about. That's number 4 here, so we don't need to mention that yet. But if you're walking in the store, you're seeing all these books, what's catching your eye?
First thing that catches my eye is Chicken Double number 3. Picked that book up today. It has been a pedal to the metal, all gas, no brakes type of book ever since issue number 1. I didn't get a chance to read issue number 3 yet, but that's going to change tonight.
Oh,
what about
good.
you, Ash?
Very good. What is catching my eye? Chicken Devil, kinda. I read the first issue of Chicken Devil, and it really surprised me. I just had to read it because of that cover and the name. And I was like, what is this book all about? And by the time I was done with it, I was like, wow, that was a wild ride. It wasn't 100% like my kind of book, but I really appreciated it for what it was. It was kind of like, Breaking Bad, but like on a weird acid trip. Like, I don't know how to really describe it, but it had a lot of intensity, and just sort of like just going in a weird kind of like everything's going south kind of way that the Breaking Bad did. I don't know, it definitely made me curious to know more about the story. So I'm interested to see if it keeps up on that same level. I definitely think anyone who's looking at that book and saying, this looks like a book for me, you need to check it out, because it's not really a book for me, and I still found it compelling and interesting. So you may really love it. I would definitely recommend checking it out. I keep seeing, every time I see Texas Blood on the shelf, I'm like, why am I not getting this book? I feel like I want, and I just, every month goes by, and I'm like, hey, there's another, I still haven't got into this book yet. What about you? Have you gotten into that or read any of that yet?
I have all issues of the first arc. I've read 3 issues from the first arc. I really enjoyed all of it. It's got some nice subtle tones to it. It plays out really well. It feels like an indie film, but doesn't feel like it's not a comic at the same time. Same thing, similar. I keep pushing things in front of it, even though I've already purchased the issues. So I just got to settle down and go back and dive into it. But I can say, although I've read Jacob Phillips' other art, New Burn, with he and Chip Zdarsky, I easily enjoyed that Texas Blood first 3 issues more than I've enjoyed New Burn's first 2 issues.
Oh, okay. The top 2 books here on the list are House of Slaughter and Radiant Black. And I have to say, these 2 books did not resonate with me. The latter one at all. I thought Radiant Black was, the first issue, granted, was just, I did a review of it. If anyone's curious, you can go back and look up Radiant Black, my review. Not good. House of Slaughter was going in with all sorts of hope, and just kind of was like, but obviously I'm in the minority. People are loving these books. I'm assuming, since they're so popular here. And maybe it's just I'm getting old. This is like something that that the kids get, and us old folks are just like, get off my lawn. But yeah, I mean, it's interesting to see those. I'm usually one who gravitates towards popularity. I'm not one of those hipster, like, oh, it's the popular thing, it must suck. Usually the things I'm into are oftentimes, at least it used to be this way, maybe it's because I'm getting old. Maybe I used to be the kid. I don't know. Anyways, your thoughts on those books, or have you found seen any different on that, or your thoughts kind of like with me?
I never read Radiant Black. I heard people talking about it, and I heard people, especially excited because of the work that Kyle Higgins had just finished doing with the Power Rangers series, I think, which was being published through Boom, correctly. But I never gave it a shot, so I'm not quite sure. The covers looked cool and striking, but just never got on board with it, so I don't have an opinion on it, unfortunately.
Well, the reason I mentioned those books is not to trash on them. Obviously, that's kind of like the people's choice, the way I look at it. So those might be interesting to someone listening in because of that. Gunslinger Spawn is 3rd. Righteous Thirst for Vengeance 4th. And we got Eat the Rich and Time Before Time coming in 5th and 6th. I've been hearing good things about both of those books, but neither one really seemed up my alley. Do you know anything about those?
No, same. I do hear people speak favorably, particularly about Gunslinger Spawn and Time Before Time. As I hear most people who have read Radiant Black, are currently still reading, speak favorably about it. But I have not read Gunslinger Spawn. I have not read Eat the Rich. Time Before Time is the only one that really felt like it was up my alley, although I enjoy Westerns. I'm not a huge Spawn fan. So, yeah, I haven't had an opportunity to check any of those out. But so many indies that seem so interesting. If only I had more time, I would definitely be reading even more than I'm already reading now.
Right. We've been seeing Marania in the audience making some comments about some of the best covers that she likes, and I think that's kind of an interesting topic. She likes Righteous Thirst for Vengeance as the best cover on top row, than Deep Beyond, but I particularly enjoying these Chicken Devil covers. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's just because I have an appreciation for absurdity, but just seeing this dude with a gun in a chicken costume in a ball pit, the way this cover is just composed, it may not be the best illustration, but this book does to me what I think a comic should do in covers. Like, the covers draw me in. It makes me want to open the cover and go, what is inside? What is going on here? What about you? Do these covers stick out to you, or could you just take them or leave them?
No, I've really enjoyed every single cover, and I know, majority of them he's in the chicken suit. So of course, just that alone, someone dressed up as a mascot. And I used to work for Jamba Juice, so I used to be the dope out on the street shaking the sign in this. So there's something deeper than just the story, and the plot that's reeling me in. I feel compelled to buy this book as a retired mascot myself. So but what you said about absurdity is completely true. Like, if something's going to be absurd, I want it to be all the way absurd. And they pull no punches in that Chicken Devil book. I feel like everyone should read it at least once. If not, and not necessarily because it may be a book for them or not, but just to, this book shows you a completely different feel and pace that comics can deliver. And I just feel like it's worth people just having that experience alone, just to see how different comics can provide you a point of view in a story.
Absolutely. That's one thing I will credit that book for sure, is the writer and the artist. Like, they bring us, they understand that the pacing is spot on. That's something I really appreciate in a comic book, because it's a story of sequential art. So it's images, but they're still images. And you're trying to get the reader to read it at a certain pace so that it flows. Because, like, if you watch a movie or TV show, you dictate the pace. The audience has to watch it or consume it at the pace you set. I guess they could watch it on fast forward. You know what I'm saying? But in a comic book or a regular book, the reader reads it at their pace, and sometimes that can throw things off, and sometimes it's just still images. If you're not good at telling a story through sequential art, you don't feel that. But that's one of the few books for me that I read, I was like, wow, man, like I was feeling that sense of tension and things building, and that urge to, like, get to the next page.
Yeah.
So bravo on those, on that book, creators of that. I'm all tongue-tied here. The next here, list another 14 books. Leading off, we've got Army of Darkness, 1979. Bendis' new book from Dark Horse, Joy Operations. Critical Role book. Telepath number 4. Odin's Eye number 2. Among other books. Anything standing out among these titles?
I'm going straight for the jugular. Odin's Eye number 2. I have number 1 and number 2 en route to my home right now, so I can't wait to tear into those. Bad Idea books just continue to be a treat. They're like dessert for comic book lovers. Yeah,
jealous.
so I just I'm very, very, very much looking forward to reading that story. And yeah, what about yourself? What do you see? Besides, well, I see one book that you see.
Well, if I saw any of these Bad Idea books on the shelf, I would be grabbing them. Any of them. Especially Odin's Eye, because I'm really big into Norse culture and mythos and things like that. So, but yeah, I just don't see them. So to me, it's like a pipe dream. I'm like, oh. But Army of Darkness, I got the first issue. Never really read it. No, it wasn't this. It was a different Army of Darkness. I take my screen name as Ash because it's off of this character, and I find it very difficult to read licensed properties because oftentimes they're just not done well, or they have some creator that has a completely different idea of the property than I do, and and I'm just like, you know what, I'm fine. I'll just take. I'm very much a purist, right? So sometimes though, you can defy my expectations. And like with Blade Runner 2019, that was fantastic. So I might be missing out on some of these. I don't give them the shot just because I have that bias. But I like looking at the covers. Telepaths I'm very curious about because Straczynski, and I'm very curious to see what AWA does with their shared universe. I'm like, get this off the ground already. I was like, I just want to like shake the editor in chief of AWA. I'm like, can you just make ongoing titles for your shared universe? I'll buy into it. Like, you know, I Marvel and DC aren't doing it for me, but I do love shared superhero universes. You launched, unfortunately, the pandemic came like 2 months later, and it shut everything down. But I'm like, you're building this, make it. I'm as much as I'll praise their miniseries, a lot of this horror stuff, and they're pretty good. It's just not what I'm looking for, and I guess I'm just being a beggar and a chooser. But that's what I wish. I don't get as excited when it's like little miniseries here, little miniseries there. And that's kind of my thing with Telepass. I want to be super excited. If this was an ongoing series, it would have been on my pull list. And now I'm just kind of waiting to see how it shakes out and catching it in trade. I'm very interested. I think, I'll tell you what's on here that I haven't read it yet. Clear.
Yep, that's what I was waiting for.
So Clear is a book that's not available in your comic book stores, much like Bad Idea Comics. Ooh. That was a jab. But it is available only on Comixology, at least for the meantime. This is a deal that Comixology and Amazon has done with Scott Snyder. Some of you may know who he is. And he's got like 8 different total books coming out through this deal with Comixology. And this isn't a cheap deal. He's got a bunch of great artists working with, like Greg Capullo. And in this book, he's got Francis Manapul.
Tula Lote.
Yeah, Tula Lote, who I'm not really familiar with, but Skip knows more about.
Yeah.
But Clear is my favorite book so far that he's doing. And this is even counting his print books that I do really like as well. Undiscovered Country and Noctura. I like both of those books. I like this book much better. And I never appreciated Frank Manapul's art like I did in this book. This book is gorgeous to look at inside. It's a fantastic pairing. I love the concept of what's going on. I love that it's very much this sort of like cyberpunkish detective noir story. It reminds me a lot of Blade Runner in theme, but it didn't copy the Blade Runner concept, which was great. There's just so many aspects about this book that it's like, it feels like Scott created a book for me. And I'm like, and I think it's being done pretty well. So I'm very much enjoying this. I urge other people to check it out. You can read it. Incidentally, you do not need Comixology Unlimited to read this. If you have a Prime account, Amazon Prime, all of the Comixology originals are available to read through Prime on a Kindle. You just need the Kindle app, which you can get on your phone, on a Kindle, on your tablet, on your computer. Pretty much anything. Your refrigerator can probably play Kindle. What about you, Skip? Is there anything else on this?
I have heard and have been encouraged to check out Search for Who. And I was very cool. Who?
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 Who are you? Who are you curious about?
I am curious about who. I'm searching for him.
That's why I'm asking you. Who?
Yeah, who is who I'm referring to. I'm referring to who.
All right, that joke played itself out. Keep going.
Yep. Yeah. So search for who. I have it on good authority that it is a proper book. It's from Aftershock, same publisher that is publishing Chicken Devil. I've been reading more and more titles from Aftershock and have just really been enjoying them. So I figured I'd check that out as well based off of who recommended it to me. It's just that I heard some good things about like on some people's. Well, actually, it was Rockin' Robbie Billups from Pop Culture Philosopher's channel. He said that The Me You Love in the Dark was a really good book, so I ended up pushing that right up in front of Who. But hopefully, I'll get clear enough to go back and check it out.
There's a new book here on the shelf that I always like to, pause for a second, look at new books when they're number ones. This is a Dark Horse book. It's called Black Solstice. This is how you don't do a cover, but it's a one shot, and never mind. I'm not interested in one shots. I'm such a comic snob, but I like science fiction, and so it has a science fiction-y sounding name, and a cover that just has a title on a black background. Okay.
And that's that.
And moving on. More books? Anything here?
Let's see. The All-Nighter. I believe that's Chip Zdarsky's book.
It is. It's a book I was very curious to try out about vampire who uses his powers to be a superhero.
Yeah, I'm curious about that, but I would say even above that, Night of the Cadillacs from Scout Comics is one that I was really interested in. I had picked up the book, took a peek inside, liked what I saw, immediately closed it back, snapped a picture of it because that's my reminder. Whenever I go to comic shops and I find stuff, I take pictures of them and go back to my Photos app later and just look at the map of all the comic shops before I go there to remind myself like what I want to buy, because I either already have a full pull box, a full saver, or don't want to start a new one there. And that book seemed pretty interesting. What about you?
This doesn't have really. The Night of the Ghoul is another Scott Snyder book, Comixology original. It's part of the 8 different books. I've actually heard very good things about this. I'm not typically the straight up horror guy, and this one seems the most straight up horror of the books. Although I hear that that's his background, and people have said good things. It's him and Francesco Francavilla. So I'm very curious to try this out. I just haven't yet. They're always going to be. The great thing about having the unlimited account is it's not like I can read them anytime. I'll probably just binge these, but I'm going to try out all of his books because you know me. I'm a Snot Rider fan.
You are a Snot Rider fan, you.
There is another new book here. It's looks pretty ludicrous. All Out Poo. I would definitely look at this at the comic book store. The Secret Apocalypse Crisis War of Infinite Poos.
Yeah, it looks like into the Pooniverse.
Into the Pooverse. So for those of you who can't see the image, this is the cover of basically parodies of Marvel and DC characters, all as Winnie the Pooh. And it looks like a crisis book. Looks pretty silly, and I don't know. It would definitely make me thumb through it. That is for sure.
Yep. Look out for the movies coming soon to the MC Pooh.
Nice.
I had to.
Yeah, that was a low hanging fruit.
Gotta pick it. Sometimes it's the sweetest fruit.
Nothing's really standing out to me. In the remainings, I do like this cover here. I don't know anything about the book, but Starweed.
Oh, Starweed. Yeah, that's my buddy Tony's book.
Oh,
yeah, shout out to Tony.
Shout out to Tony.
Yep.
Well,
that's my buddy. Heat culture. He's adopted me into the Miami Heat family since the Kings are so terrible. So every season I have one team that I can watch that actually wins. But yeah, shout out to my buddy Tony. He was also the artist with Aubrey Sitterson on a book that just wrapped up called The Worst Dudes. So if y'all remember seeing that title and being like, whoa, what? This is the artist from that same exact book. I believe this, if I remember correctly, they were doing a Kickstarter on this, and they ended up reaching their goal and was successful. And glad to see that that it's getting published outside of just that. So shout out to Tone.
Yeah, especially since I had no idea. I just was saying this cover looks neat. Good job. When you do a cover, that's exactly what you want people to do, is grab it, pick it up off the shelf, get interested in seeing more. And I just feel like cover art is becoming a lost science. Not really. It's not really a science, but you know what I mean.
Yes, I do.
And some of these on here, just some of these covers, I'm just like, ugh, I just want to look away. So that is the books here. Did anyone in the chat mention anything that struck them? Night of the Ghoul, Essentia, and Silence look good cover-wise, says Marania. And she agrees about the Starweed. And a lot of comments. It's hard to sift through these. Thank you guys for commenting so much. Comic Book Frog says that Telepass has been legitimately great. So if you trust the opinions of a frog that is literally a puppet, there you go. He might know more than I do. Moving right along. We won't spend too much time here. We'll get to the feature book. Any book, though, you want to make a mention of that you've read? Actually, you know what? Let's just save that for the hangout part.
I'm with that.
Seems like that's the best fit for that, because I got a couple books that I want to talk about, and I think some books that no one's ever heard of that'll be interesting, and we'll see if maybe we can get some other voices on as well. So we'll see how that turns out. But tonight, the feature book that we're going to be talking about is A Righteous Thirst for Vengeance. Let me switch over here. And Skip, you have a copy of this book handy?
I do.
Or do you want me to? I can share the screen, but if I don't need to.
Oh, it's not necessary. Not for me, anyway.
All right. My computer's choking, so I want to try to save it some resources. Give a little rest here. trying to live stream and share screens through Discord, and it's just like, what are you doing to me? I'm old.
Yeah, let's be nice to the pewter.
It's almost as old as me. No, it's not that.
Oh,
old.
wow.
No, it's not that. The computers weren't even invented yet. Just kidding.
but ENIAC.
But ENIAC, right? Nice one. Okay, there we go. Okay, so back to what I was doing. Righteous Thirst for Vengeance is up on the screen. This is a fantastic crime thriller book by Rick Remender and Andre Lima Araujo, with colors by Chris O'Halloran and lettering by Russ Wooten. And this is a book that I had no anticipation to read until Skip was like, this is my #1 book of the week. And I was like, what? How dare you rate this over Firepower? So I was indignant. And I went and read it. And I was like, yeah, Skip's right again. Damn it. So this has been a book that I have been steadily getting more and more excited about. And tonight we're going to mix things up a little bit. Skip is normally the recap master here about the books, way better than I do. But because it's the last show of the year, sometimes you just want to play at something you're not good at. So he's indulged me to do the rehash, and hopefully you guys will indulge me as well. And don't worry, we'll get back to Skip, being the, I'll go back to the bench, and we'll put Skip in the starting position again. But here we go. This is the third issue of this book, where we last left off. This girl here on the cover was faced off with our protagonist and another hitman. And if you don't know what's going on, I didn't need to tell you right now. This is going to be massive spoilers. And this is a book that you don't want spoilers. This is a book that is a thriller that works based on not knowing what's going to happen. It is an edge of your seat type of work. And the reason I love this book so much is because of what I talked about earlier about pacing and having those thrills. It is so hard to do in a medium like this, where the audience can turn the page at any time. You can't control how they consume the information. So we're going to spoil it, and I'm sorry and genuinely, you will never be able to read this the first time twice. So you've been warned. Now, the book starts off with a different location with no timestamp. So we're a little bit left a little bit in the shadows, which is one of the things that works for this book, is that slight edge of confusion of it doesn't just feed all the data to you. You don't always 100% know what's going on, and it's up to you to piece it out and make sense of it. And that's really part of the joy of this book. You really need to be on board for that, I think. Now, this French Polynesia island seems very much a analog to another island about another certain person who most likely didn't kill themselves in prison. This is definitely an R-rated book, so children's eyes should be averted. There's much sexcapades going on here. Sadly, probably not near as bad as what happened on the real life island, but we won't go there. We get to see a rich guy who's doing different things, and he gets a phone call, and he sees an image on the phone, and it's a picture of the girl that's on the cover, and we know her from the last page of the last book, as our protagonist was, he's pretending to be a hitman, and the hitman that he's pretending to be is supposed to kill her, and we see the man at the island identify that's her. And we'll just stop at this scene for a second. Skip, this opening scene, what did you think about it?
It was nice to see the world of this book kind of expanding a little more, because things seemed fairly contained for the first issue. The second issue did open things up a little bit more. So it's nice that we start, from a smaller scope and then start expanding outside of that. Of course, being that the protagonist took the gig to hide based off of his knowledge and access to the dark web, we see the other side. We saw him trying to protect the person while taking the job. Now we see a little bit of the person who's on the other side of the gig, the person who is doing the hiring, who is posting the job. And we see, yes, some additional ties to, alternative lifestyles, affluent clubs and cults, living a very, not kosher, kind of deplorable, despicable. If someone finds out about this, they're going to put me under the prison type of lifestyle. So again, yeah, my main takeaway was it's nice to see the world expand. It's nice to see some other characters starting to come into play to add to the intrigue. What about you, Ash? What'd you think?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of hinted a little bit about what I was thinking here. I like that I come in and I'm like, whoa, what's going on here? Like, it just puts me in an unsettling position. And that's kind of one of the hallmarks of this book, is everywhere you're as an audience member, you're always kind of in an unsettling, not sure where your feet are going to land. And Rick Remender, he knows how to not pull punches when it comes to unsavory content, but I think for here it's for a purpose. It's not gratuitous, which I appreciated, because I'm not a prude. I just don't want to see unnecessary, like, if you're just doing it because, like, pornography, like, that's not why I like it. If you're doing it because you need to establish, like, what's really going on and what matters, and like, that this person is a vile he's communicating things, and there's no words other than that last panel. Everything is done with pictures in this book.
Absolutely. And I did take, a little bit of, Rick Remender cannot deny himself. This is the most restraint I've seen. So now we have two different cases. One where the murder was unveiled to us and we saw how torturous and kind of diabolical it was. And then, of course, these opening scenes, seeing, some of that not so savory imagery, is kind of par for the course for Remender. But all right, what about after that?
Now, all right, here we go. On next scene, we get back to where we left off, right? I mean, next panel, we're right back where we were, and we see this other hitman who has been contracted to partner up with the guy that I'm just calling this guy Wong, the main antagonist. I don't think they've ever provided an actual name for him. Very much like the show, he's unnamed. So I'm just going to call him Wong because he looks like Benedict Wong. And anyways, so we can see he's on the phone. So we have a transition. Clearly, he's the guy who made the phone call to that rich sleazebag on the island. And they're going to kill this girl, and she's super afraid. Now, I said this on the past 2 episodes, but on the chance that this is the first time, this book, it is begging you to not read it too fast. It is begging you to fall in line with the pacing of this book. And because the dialogue is so sparse, and sometimes it's non-existent, it's just told through imagery, it is crucial, in my opinion, that you refrain from blasting through this book. And each time I read this book, the issues, I find myself doing that, like, just in wanting to get next, because you're excited, you're into the story, and you want to see what happens next. And so you have the mental capacity to read faster. It's not about that. It's about playing it out in real time, just like if you were watching a movie. And I think, honestly, if you try that and if you're disciplining yourself to do it, this book will play out much better. It plays out much better for me, at least. So I encourage others to do the same. I listen to music, not music with lyrics. I put on instrumental. In this case, crazy enough, I put the Cyberpunk soundtrack on just because it has a lot of really tense, kind of grindy music. If anyone who's played the game will understand, and it worked really well, and it helps keep me on timing, and it helps also building up that tension, because music can be very emotional. Anyways, moving on. He claps up the phone that he was talking on. The girl is frightened to death. He's looking over at Wong going, yeah, well, we're going to kill. And Wong is just sweating bullets. He's not a killer. We can tell. And this is a great way for Remender to communicate to us. And the artist, through Remender's script, works beautifully. We know that Wong isn't some cold-blooded guy. And he never has to tell us. There's never any exposition in this book. This is a clinic on show, don't tell, if you've ever heard that about writing. And I wish I was a writer person, like, that's something that I really impresses me. But because he's kind of distracting the other killer, who's kind of like nagging at him and being like, come on, get your game on. He has a really cool comment, never forget or never meet your heroes. Because he's still convinced that this guy is this like legendary hitman. So he's like, it's interesting, and I love that Remender has the how do I say, the awareness to write this, as the other hitman doesn't immediately figure it out, because his what's that term? I can't remember the term now that I talk about this. But because his brain he's trained to think that this killer. It's hard for him to switch gears and see, like, oh, wait, this isn't who I think it is. Right. And there's a term for that I use, cognitive dissonance. Cognitive dissonance oftentimes will prevent you from seeing reality because your brain is trained. Anyways, you guys know what it is. If you don't, you can Google it. So she has good time to grab a knife, slash at him, and we get a scene of a little bit of a struggle here. Then she sprays a pot of whatever was cooking on the stove into his face, and it burns him. And Wong tells the girl to go, and she's just panicking. You could just see the panic, and then the Wong just being like, the anxiety. He doesn't know what to do. He's way out of his element. And when I was reading this, Skip, like I said, just pace beat by beat. I'm not rushing it, taking each frame in, kind of letting it play out in my mind as if it were a film. The tension was just palpable. I was just like, oh my God. We get a scene of she's trying to get away, but then the other hitman grabs her hair, yanks her on the ground, slams her down, and the other guy is like still not getting it. And he's like, you got the camera? And and he's just kind of angry that things are going wrong, but he still can't break his mindset. It hasn't dawned on him. And I love the way this plays out. He drops the camera. One of the things about the theme of this book is this Wong character. Everything seems to kind of go wrong for. It never plays out exactly right. It's almost like there's a black cat in his midst.
Right.
And then, but he also, we've seen from the previous books that he can't let things go either. And as he's leaving, he sees the knife on the ground that the girl had. And we see it come into frame here as he's looking at this guy's back. He's looking down at the victim, and we see the knife come into focus, and he's going to get her, but he's no killer. And the hitman notices it as he tries to swing at him. And then at this point, I'm like, oh my God, no. Because you're like, this guy is a trained killer. Wong's obviously not. And now he's given away his hand. He no longer can pretend. Make matters worse, the killer has a gun. Wong has a knife. That's no good. And wow, this is one big long scene, so we'll keep going. Wong's now being choked to death on the floor. Then there's the scene where these keys that he was supposed to go get from the car are on the ground. He's able to finger them, slide his finger through the loophole, like the key ring, grab it, and then stabs the guy in the neck. We get a little bit of a violent tussle, and this whole fight plays out very viscerally, but also very realistically. This isn't like Kung Fu Hollywood fighting type of thing. This is like mean, like how real people struggling for their lives, and he's like stabbing the guy in his neck with the key. Meanwhile, the hitman, a key strike isn't going to knock you out, so he's still punching him, but eventually we find out that key strike hit what seems to be a major artery, and he's really bleeding out, and he ends up collapsing. And then we'll stop on that scene, Skip. This is a big, long part. I wanted to give you an option to really talk about what you thought about how this all played out.
Absolutely. Yeah, very, very visceral, very, very gritty. The perspectives and where Andrea Lima Araujo decides to put the camera, over the shoulder of Wong when Wong is striking, right above his head, as he's, when his head's on the floor, as he's getting, being struck, and it's like a ground and pound situation. And the camera movements, along with the panels and the way that they're arranged, of course, like the movement streaks and all of that, just really add up to, to all of the kinetic energy that you feel, between the two characters. Both of them take blows and give them, and you feel that energy exchange through the panels with, the sounds and the limited amount of talking and dialogue. It really does feel like the midst of a fight or flight moment, kill or be killed type of situation. And like I said, one of my favorite things about it, even aside from the colors, is just where the camera is put for certain situations. And I love how in the last panel of this exchange, when the other guy finally falls to the floor, is bleeding out through his neck, we put the camera right on the floor at his feet, showing that he's gone from, being in a position of advantage to a position of surrender. So all of those things just very masterfully put together, and even having it at that angle, at that level, gives us as readers and as viewers a sense of relief that, that part of the exchange has concluded. What about you, Ash?
Absolutely. I pretty much said everything that my comments were part of the synopsis, but I really like your comment about the camera angle switching and the being at his feet, and but the frames right above that. I just wanted to point out, this artist, he may not be the best illustrator as far as like rendering pictures, but his skill at sequential art storytelling is top of the game. This scene here, of how he's stumbling, those three panels in the middle where he's like standing over Wong, straddling him, and you can feel like my brain is imagining him like swaying and stumbling. And then the next thing where he's like collapsing back into the table and the chair's moving, I can feel the furniture shuffling around and the collapse as he finally hits the ground. All of that, like, it plays out in my mind like a film. Like, it's that's how you should be striving to do sequential art. The reader should be imagining things, not just seeing snapshots and like a flashback, like a slideshow. It should be cinematic, and I love how this captures that. After this, the hitman is left for dead. He's just kind of collapsed, not moving. And Wong grabs the girl, picks her up, fireman's carry, takes her out to the hall, and gets in the elevator and kind of collapses on the ground. He's struggling to even hold her up, and he's definitely winded. He's bleeding. The psychological stress now is catching up the physical stress. And then we cut over to him on the freeway. He's driving the car. And again, this is that theme that I love, that it keeps playing out. It's becoming kind of a trope of this book where things don't go right for Wong. It's always, and it's nothing like catastrophic, although sometimes it can lead to catastrophe. And in this case, he's just driving away and he's through the woods and everything seems clear. Like, there's no police are following him or anything. The girl's unconscious. She's in the seat. He's driving. He's smoking a cigarette. And he tries to put the cigarette out, but there's so many butts in the ashtray. And when he kind of like tosses it down, it bounces off of one of the other cigarettes and goes into the foot area of the passenger side where the girl's sitting. And she's wearing, like, I don't know what those are called, female, they're just shoes, women's shoes. I don't know. Maybe Maranya can tell us what those are called. There's a certain style of women's shoes that I know them. I don't know the name of them. But anyways, flats. Yeah, maybe flats. A lot of skin is exposed. So the cigarette is on and it starts to burn into her skin, which jolts her to consciousness. And of course, the last thing she remembers is being assaulted by murderers. So she's freaking out. She immediately throws a punch at Wong, who's driving a car in the middle of the night through a dark road with trees, and the car crashes. And it's just, again, it's all this visceral intensity. And if you're reading this book the way I was, just deliberately following the beat, letting yourself pace, it's like a white knuckle thriller. And sometimes it's the thriller of like, no, because you're rooting for Wong. Wong just saved this girl, and now it's all going to shit. The car's now crashed. He's trying to explain that he saved her. She, of course, doesn't know who he is or anything. And he's like, okay, we're getting near the border. We can get a fake ID. And then she mentions, where's my son? And he's like, what? My son. He was asleep in the bed. I didn't know. It wasn't in your file. And she's, of course, a despondent mother. So she's like, take me back right now. They have an argument. And she is not taking no for an answer. She's not leaving her son. But he's like, the real Blue Jackal, which is the name of the assassin he's pretending to be. He's like, the real Blue Jackal should be there any minute. Like, we can't go back. And again, it's all this tensity. He gets onto the dark web again to see what's going on because somehow he's got access. And again, it's one of those shady things that Remender doesn't clue us in. We don't exactly know. We don't even know this character's name, much less why he's got access to the dark web. We don't even necessarily know what he's doing, but we're on this journey with him. We're like, what's going on? We see you're kind of a good guy, so we're rooting for you, but why? And he gets on the dark web, and a message immediately pops up. You had a job to do. And then it goes to static. And I'm going to pause here because it's still kind of the same scene, but I think this is an interesting part. It's a page turner. Skip, what did you think about through this whole part?
Yeah, of course, the intrigue builds. He feels like he, a moment of relief. He was able to dispatch that guy. He was able to, acquire the person that he was trying to protect, gets the hell out of Dodge in a dirty car, but still away from the scene, only to find out that wasn't the only thing that needed to be protected. So that realization with the conflict of, going back there is bad news on so many levels, whether it be, the person who hired them, finding out that the mission was a failure and sending someone else, or just the authorities. You know, the conflict rises and builds. So, but ultimately, you know, being the person that we feel like we have an understanding of, who is trying to do good and who cares. Of course, he wants to reunite the mother with the son, even though, you know, there's no danger. Well, we can't say that. There's no current present danger, but more could be right around the corner. So again, you know, the conflict rises, and we are left wondering, you know, what will be the outcome of them returning, because they've already gotten clear of what we thought was the primary threat.
Right. And now the powers that be know who he is. And there's a comment in the chat about someone says anyone can get on the dark web, and while that may be true, this is kind of the comic world dark web, the fantasy dark web. This is the dark web that is in that book Red Room, at least in my imagining. My headcanon, that's this dark web, and that makes me fear for Wong all the more. Like, what have you gotten yourself into? And I just love the contact, wet bear. Just this whole book is so full of flavor. I just love going back through it. As we're going through it right now and talking about it, I'm just seeing little bits and things that some of it I missed, some of it I'm appreciating even more a second time. And she's all now panicking. He's trying to connect back to the dark web, and then it's like a little smiley face. It won't help you. And he's just like, and he throws the phone. And again, the intensity of just, even though this illustration is very simple in some terms, I don't really want to knock it, but it's not the typical super clean, highly rendered stuff that we may be used to in AAA comics. But that to me doesn't matter. This type of story doesn't need that. What this type of story needs is to convey that emotion. I need the story told in pictures. And this little scene of just seeing the cell phone and then Wong's face and then him tossing the phone out the window, it tells, you know, you say a picture's worth 1,000 words. This is an example of that. And now she kind of sees his something's wrong. She's like, what's happening? What's wrong? And he's just like, nothing. Everything's fine. So he's going to turn around. He's going to we're going to go get your son. And then we cut to the hallway, apartment 3B. We see the other hitman still laying on the ground. Presumably he is dead. Although, again, nothing was ever confirmed. We're left to assume. And I love that about this. I love that Remender never spells anything out. He shows us what we need to see, and he lets us just sort of take our own assumptions with everything else until it matters. And then we see the camera move into another room, and this is where her son is, lying in bed, peacefully asleep with a book next to his side. I wonder what he was reading. Unaware of all the horrors that have been going on outside, saying to be continued. Skip, what did you think about this issue's ending?
The ending of it, I would have suggested, or I would have preferred for it to be flipped around a little bit, for us to end on her son being there. So them kind of just swap those two parts. You know, as they're on the road and the car crashes, you know, the camera go back to this scene and show the guy dead and kind of move through the house, and then us see that there's someone else, you know, in the house, and then it cut back to them and her kind of explain that part. So that would have been my preference, because I would have liked to have ended on, oh wait, there was someone else there that whole time, we didn't know that, and then her revealing who that is, and then us being like, oh. But I did enjoy the fact that we know that you know, the protagonist has been, at least we know that someone else is aware that the job did not go through completely. And now our main question is, how long until someone else is sent out to the spot, and how is that going to conflict with him going back and getting the son? I did appreciate that his phone was essentially hacked, so it's not just him accessing the dark web, but even other things, you know, the main web, the bright web, the middle web. I don't know.
Right.
But even those parts of his phone, having access, they're able to see what he's doing, and he had to, just ditch the phone. So they especially have to get away from there, because if they've hacked that, then they know their current location. So all of those things, again, just kind of builds it more and more and more. And I liken us not knowing his name a little bit to like Purple Rain, the Prince movie.
Uh-huh.
It's like we didn't know his name. I mean, when everyone referenced him at all, if they had to call him something, they just called him the Kid.
Right.
But just goes to show that, you don't always need to know certain things, but more understand the characters of the people, their behaviors, how they act, and then let that unravel within what the plot of the story is. What are your closing remarks on this issue number 3?
Well, I want to echo what you said. I don't feel exactly the same with the way that it ended. I see what you're saying, and I'm trying to imagine how it would play out, and I don't think it would be a bad way. I just feel satisfied with how this particular way is, because it feels like a good cliffhanger. It feels like every issue like this where it's like, oh gosh, something's gonna happen with this now. And I feel like all the previous books have picked up kind of where the last one left off, right? So I feel showing that scene is probably gonna be more important the way it plays out this way for the next book when we see perhaps the Blue Jackal showing up. Right. Speaking of Blue Jackal, this is the next issue preview cover. Do you think this is probably the Blue Jackal?
I'm starting to believe, based off of what we saw from issue number 1 and how he handled business, because doing that type of work in the way that he did it leaves a very strong message. And so I am of the mind that is likely the Blue Jackal.
Yeah. And we can see here in the bottom portion, looks like there's some sort of like car chase perhaps going on. So yeah, I think a little bit of a tease. Can't really make much out of it, but I am into this book, Skip. I am so into this book. I love this book, and I'm a huge fan of sequential art. The way it can be used to really convey a story. I really don't like when... I think that's one of my problems a lot with the modern comic era, is that it's become quote-unquote the writer's era. And I feel like going back in the 80s and beyond, like before, when you had comics written with quote-unquote the Marvel way or the Marvel method, which was like a very loose script that was given to the artist, and then the artist would take that loose script and kind of illustrate a visual story of what that script was saying, and then they would give that back to the writer, who would then go in and fill it in with dialogue and things to clean it all up, like, tell the story. And you got a lot more visual storytelling that way, whereas modern comics are written very much in the Alan Moore method, which I like to call, where he basically dictates everything. Panel 3, see the character doing this, and like basically just tells the artist, draw this and draw it this way. And that can be really good if a writer has a really firm grasp of all the visuals and how to tell it visually. Not every writer is that way. And some writers are more loose with that and have a good partnership with their artists and things, but it's never set in stone. But I think a lot of comics today, the writers, they don't have the trust in their artists, or maybe they don't have enough communication with their artist because of the working scenario with whatever studio they're at. And so they just can't rely that the artist is going to sell. So what they do is they tell a story through words and treat the art as like pictures, like it's like an illustrated book. And some people, I'm not saying that's necessarily a bad thing, but it's not what I love about comics. And so I think that's why I'm a huge Frank Miller fan, because I know a lot of people will criticize his art, and I think when they do criticize his art, they're always saying, because it's like ugly to look at, like it's not pretty pictures. And to that I can totally understand and agree. But what I love about him is his ability to tell a story through pictures, how he tells that story. And once I became open-eyed to that, through the help of my stepfather when I was growing up, he was an actual artist, and he kind of taught me that and opened my eyes like, oh, wow. And then I started to see like how other books weren't doing that. And so now that's just how I look at comics. I'm very, very much art bent. And when I say that, I don't mean, like, I love pretty pictures as much as anyone, but that's for the cover. The book needs to tell that story. And if the writer can fade into the background and let the writing be what the artist is drawing and less about what the words that they're putting on the page, I think a lot of times you can have a much better story.
Absolutely.
All right. Any final thoughts before we go off of this book and into the hangout phase?
Nope, just really been enjoying it like you. So excited to get to the next issues, but in no rush because I'm enjoying the ride.
Yeah, I'm really glad I'm not binging this on a trade later.
Yeah, indeed.
Yeah, the pacing. It's torture to have to wait, but when I finally get it, I'm like, yeah. So, all right, we're gonna do the hangout now, and Skip, why don't you just see if there's any comments we've overlooked that might be crucial or just informed, while I try to clean up on the back end here.
I mean, other comics that I've been enjoying? Is that what you're asking?
No, sorry, comments.
Oh, comments.
Get to the comments section.
Comments section. Let's see. Yeah, Maranya verified the slippers, ballet slippers /flat. So thank you for that, Maranya. Let's see. Rhaegar, Chief Bill's coming due. Oh, yeah. Anyone can get to the dark web, including you and I. Yeah, Ash talked about that. Ryuk says some twisted thinking you got there. I'm going to assume he's talking about something that Ash said. But, I mean, I do love Ice Cream Man, so obviously I'm a twisted individual. I probably could have said something crazy, too. Let's see. Rhaegar, he was reading Crime and Punishment by Dostoevsky. Perhaps. That is a book that I have not read yet, but believe it or not, that and Beware of Pity are two books that I have on my reading list for next year, so thanks for reminding me. Quote, unquote. Now there's a 90s phrase I haven't heard in a long time. Yeah, I like that one. That was a good call out by Ash. Quote, unquote. And Maranya says, I like the next issue preview page. Great line art. Great use of monochrome red. I agree, Maranya. Maranya always has really good commentary around colors, which I enjoy because I'm a very big color guy. I really enjoy how colorists, especially the ones that are really good, put the different tones and palettes together to make those. I do color grading on video, so that's my way to get involved in the game. Although I do need to get back into coloring pages and panels because I did really enjoy that while I was doing it. Hi to Lord, and another big hi to our froggy friend, Comic Book Frog.
Comic Book Frog, a.k.a. one of the many Flashes, apparently. You never knew that there was another Flash who was Comic Book Frog. Welcome, RDV, to the show as a guest coming on to talk about some indie comics that he's perhaps read throughout the year or recently or what have you. RDV?
How's it going, guys?
Yeah, great. Thanks for being here.
I choose you over sleep every time.
Oh, thanks, man. It makes me feel a little better. So we're just going to kind of do a hangout. We thought, it's the end of the year stream, kind of get get the chat a little bit more involved. So you guys are in chat. This is your time. If there's anyone that maybe, if you're part of the Discord, you have to be part of the Discord channel because I don't want to go through adding everything. But if you're part of the Discord channel and you feel like there's something you want to share about indie comics throughout the year, let me know through Discord DM, and we'll see about maybe getting you on here tonight talk. But RDV, I guess real quick, any standout books? Like if you think about 2021 and this year that we went through, what indie books stick out most in your mind, even if they didn't come out this year, but you were reading that just were like, man, I got into that book and I really loved it.
Everybody knows that Invincible came out. It's serious. That prompted me to get into the books too. And you were bragging about how much you liked it.
Oh yeah, Invincible.
That's all. Still trying to read that. I'm on issue 75, so I'm like, and I stopped because other books are coming out, so I was checking out some movie books too. So I was like, I had American Vampire 1976, which is the last volume by Snot Snyder, is our good friend Skip called him.
Snot Rider.
Yeah. Snot Rider, Snot Snyder, whatever you call it. I actually that was a book I went to. You actually originally read that last year, I believe, on the channel. I went through the next volume, and this came out. They announced that 76 was coming out this year. Actually, and end of last year. I jumped in on it because I actually love a good Western / vampire stuff, and then it started going through the decades, and I love kind of stuff like that. About a guy, he's pretty much a bad guy, but he's not really a bad guy, and there's a girl who is turned into a vampire, and she has to deal with she loves a mortal guy. He's pretty much he's aging, she's not, and then there's more and more villains coming out, and then towards the end, it just I admit it just kind of blew my mind, as far as oh my gosh, they're going with this. It's really? It's it didn't really ruin it for me. I don't want to spoil it for anybody who's gonna read it though, but it's wow. Because I've read Snyder stuff before too. I read the Batman 52, started out great, and I didn't care for the ending.
Mm-hmm.
This stuck the landing for me.
Nice.
Even though it wasn't what I was expecting, but I was like, oh God, I can go with this. I can deal with that.
Well,
kind of sad though. I was just saying, I was just kind of sad that it ended though. I was oh, it's one of those books that you just keep reading. You were reading Birthright. They went for what, 50 issues? Something like that.
Yeah, 50.
50 issues. That's nothing. I mean, it's a long time. Waiting on each month, if it's bi-weekly or if it's monthly, that's a long time. But you think about it, if you sat and read 50 issues, it doesn't take that long.
So we'll let this book slide, even though it's a DC book. Because
I know.
It does feel like it's an indie. It's definitely
the original one had Earl Stein, or not Earl Stein, but Steve. What's his name? Steve King in there. Is that his name?
Yeah, it originally was a Vertigo book, and Vertigo was creator-owned stuff, and yeah, I'm just giving you flack on that. I know. There's a few books over at DC that I'm willing to treat as indies. So those are the two. Probably, if you're thinking back up through the year, that probably stuck out to you as the big reads.
The big reads, but ones I just kept going back through was the Blade Runner books.
Oh, okay.
I read through 2019 last year, and then I jumped on 2029, which is a basic continuation of that. I've been enjoying that, still ongoing. The artwork in it is just great in there, and you get the collectible covers. The original artwork for the designs for the different the cars and the different stuff and throughout the movie stuff. The original designer. Blade Runner Origins. I got that because Skip stuff how he was reading that, and I started reading that. I was like, oh my gosh, it's actually really good. Other mentionable would be Berserker. We're really enjoying that. I guess a lot of people are, but
all right. Well, before we talk about any recent books, Skip, what would you say if you're just thinking about the top maybe 2 or 3 books, whether they're back issues or anything, that over the year, what's really standing out in your mind in the term of indie books that you read in 2021?
Just finished doing a top 10 books of the year. My top two were Ice Cream Man by W. Maxwell Prince, Martin Morazzo, Crystal Holleran, and Good Old Neon. And then my number one book was The Many Deaths of Layla Starr by Ram V and Felipe Andrade. So those are just two off the top of my head since I recently did that stand out and kind of speak to me. We've covered Layla Starr here on this channel, so I won't go over it completely. But it's just a compelling and heartwarming tale told through a very interesting perspective and use of a pantheon of gods about life, and it was ultimately a celebration of life through various different perspectives of maybe some unassuming characters in within that world, and we can use it as an analog for in our own world. So that one touched me the most. And then there's just not a more creative book on the market, in my personal opinion, than Ice Cream Man. No two issues are the same. It's always like you can tell the writer really and the artist both really challenge themselves to give you a completely different experience every time. And I mean, at least there's 26 issues that have come out, and I can at least say that 22 of them off the top of my head are things that I've never ever seen before and may never see again. So those would be my two.
Cool. I would say for me, the year 2021, the standouts of comics would be Invincible, getting on that bandwagon, both of the show, and then really highlighting the book for me to get me to give it a second chance. And I love that book, and I'm a little bit behind RDV, so I need to catch up. But that is a fantastic book, and I'm so glad I discovered it. Of like more current books, obviously discovering. Why am I drawing a blank? ULTRAMEGA. That is a book that came on super strong, blew me away, and a huge fan. Like I'm a legit just like fan of this book, and I'm so glad there's gonna be more of it. And it just hit me out of left field. It was never anything that I was looking for, and I love when I find something new, when I can add someone to the list of people I'm a fan of and subject matter that I'm a fan of, which didn't exist before. Like, you converted me. That love about that book. Layla Starr is another super standout. Totally a book that on the surface I go, that is not for me. That is not a book meant for Ash. And then I finally was like, all right, I'm going to read this book. And then I was blown away. It's not a book I would say in the same vein, like other Invincible or ULTRAMEGA. I don't know why I'm struggling with that word. It's not a fandom in the same way those two are. It's more of an appreciation for such a beautiful work of art that it is. It's 5 issues. It's one and done, and it's complete. And I can appreciate it and love that I experienced it, and I'll cherish that. I don't really necessarily have more to look forward to. So it's a different experience, but it's absolutely worth mentioning. I hope everyone gets a chance to read it. And I would say those are the things. Oh, and then of course, just my continuing voyage into the world of Ed Brubaker as we do the Criminal Cast, and I keep getting to see every time. I'm just more and more impressed, and I'm so glad I have a lot more books to get into that I've to read for the first time. So those are the standouts for me in 2021. Let's see. Someone in the chat had said something. Lord in the chat says Kaiju Max. Doesn't have any context, but I guess that's a book that stood out for him.
I think that's the one where the kaiju attacking the guys that are robbing the bank while the kaiju was attacking.
Oh, okay.
I think it's that one. I think it might be that one.
I don't know it. Evil Black Cat wants to shout out Shadecraft, GEIGER. That's another one. GEIGER was up there as Noctera. Those are Evil Black Cat's pick of 2021.
GEIGER's really good. I'm looking forward more to that.
Yeah, I'm definitely.
What about Junkyard Joe?
Yeah,
Or is it
we got one more Geiger book coming out any time now. I don't know when it's supposed to come out, but it's supposed to come out in December, but I guess it's not.
I just picked up another indie book today. I picked up the Tom Holland's Fright Night. Supposed to be based on the movie.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, what about any recent books, Venkman? Any recent indies you've been reading that just,
like I said,
you want to shout out?
I'm going through my pull list. What's it called? League Comic Geeks. Demons was pretty good. It's not what I expected it to be. You know, you guys talked about it here, and I actually enjoyed that. I've read the third issue.
The second issue definitely got better. Like the first issue, I was like, and then the second issue, I was like, oh, looks going somewhere.
Right. Tarna. That has ended in June. That was Tarna the Last Turrican. That's based off the heavy metal movie, the first one. So that was pretty good. I enjoyed that for what it was. You can buy that through the Heavy Metal magazine, which is still ongoing.
Okay.
Primordial. That is a book I normally would not read.
Mm-hmm.
It's Jeff Lemire, and it's like takes place like I think like I think I'm gonna say the 70s or just right towards the end of the 60s. It's pretty much right after like the reason why we never went back into space, and there's no conspiracy spy people and all government agent spooks, kidnapped this guy who discovered, he's supposed to basically NASA was shutting down, and this guy was meant to go, see everything you can take down, but then he starts looking at the stuff. They were told that like the animals they sent to space were dead, but then he finds like readings like that they're still like pretty much alive as far as their scans.
Mm-hmm.
And like it just takes you through like and you get this, not only you get to see this guy, he's carted off somewhere and talk to this government agent. You get to see that the animals, like there's a dog and then there's like the true primates are like they're going into this bright light. It's like you're not really sure what's going on.
Yeah.
But it's a mystery for me, and I love the fact it's like a time period. It's back in the 60s. So I've been just enjoying it, and then the artwork's good too.
I've been enjoying that book as well. Well, real quick shout outs. I just recalled there's a couple things I did not want to overlook. Birthright finished up in 2021, and I discovered it before 2021, so I guess that's why I didn't really think about it the same. Same thing with Ascender. Both of those books to me are like 2020 discoveries or earlier. So but they wrapped up in 2021, and I didn't want anyone to think like, oh, those were less worth. They're fantastic. And I think also Firepower, I think of the same way. We've been doing Firepower since before 2021. So because I didn't discover them in that time period, so that's why. Anyways, Skip, what about you? What are some like recent within the last month or two, maybe indies that have just kind of stood out in your mind?
Definitely Nita Hall's Nightmare blog. This is a book that spun out of Philadelphia, which is a book that Ash and I at one point in time were kind of kicking around to see if we may end up covering, and we ultimately decided not to. Part of what took me away from Philadelphia was it's the involvement of vampires, which I liked vampires for so much of my life, but I just got to the point at that time where I just felt like I'd kind of had my fill of them for a while. Mm-hmm. Everything else about the book was exquisite, but this one dealing with demons instead of vampires, I was like, great, because I wanted to get into this world, and I really enjoy this art by Well B, which is very similar to Jason Shaw Alexander, who is the artist of Philadelphia. So it's nice to find an in. I'm glad that their book was so successful that this book can spin off of it, and how it weaves in history with music as a background for the plot is awesome. And it's some of the most realistic and true to life dialogue between characters occur within this book. I gave it to my parents and had them read just a few pages from one scene. They were really moved by it. So that's definitely one book that I could say from the last few months, and I'm trying to think of another that has recently started. Because you said within the last month or so. Is that right, Ash?
Well, there's one.
Yeah, just any in the last month. That don't even necessarily have to be like the best books, but just books that were special to you for whatever reason. You just really enjoyed it. They just come to your mind when I say indie books recent, and you're just like, oh yeah, this one was a fun read.
Then outside of that, I would throw in Gun Honey.
Yep.
It is just a surprise book. I didn't expect for it to take off with me the way that it did, but whereas I thought I was going to get, some pulp with a heavy dose of cheesecake, I ended up getting, a dose of cheesecake with a heavy heaping helping of pulp and plot. So that book, and I know people got hot on it because of the Adam Hughes cover. I can assure you that there's a lot more to the story of this book than just that cover. There's a reason why it got optioned for a television show, in addition to getting greenlit for a second art right after the release of issue number 2. So I would advise people to check it out if you're into pulp, femme fatale stories, espionage, good plot twists, with a side of very 90s kind of lines, hash line art, and even color textures.
Yeah, I want to say, I like that book too, not because of the cheesecake, but the story actually reminded me kind of the 90s Selena Kyle stuff, back around Nightfall, when she actually written more serious. Not that she isn't today, but her character was much more defined back then. So, I mean, this character was actually given more respect. Yeah, yes, she's drawn, they do there is some nudity and stuff, but it's like, it doesn't like ruin the character for me. Character's still what she is, and she's trying, the whole plot twist, there's a plot twist, and then there's another one. I just really dug it for what it was. I'd definitely check it out. It's Charles Ardai.
Yep.
Great writer. And artist is Ang Hor. Okay. ANG. Then the next name is HOR, and then the last name is KHENG. I'll say as much where you want to.
Right.
But it's solid art all the way through. It's not like you're like. It's not like you get like the art what you're seeing on the front for like, especially for the cover A, is what you're getting in the inside too. They didn't, because most, I'm afraid with some of these books, like, you get a female lead, like, especially today, they're going to really just ham it up as far as, like, make it really left-leaning book.
Oh, yeah.
No, it was more about plot. There was no, like, propaganda nods that it's like, men are dumb, women are smarter. No, it's like, it was pretty much self-explanatory. It gives you a reason why she's able to do this, what she is to, and she uses her, flaunts her sexuality. That's how she uses her body as a tool.
It's interesting that you say that, because I recently finished that series up too, and I liked it. So I'll say that as a caveat. And that's what I was trying to lead you guys into, because I was like, neither of these guys said Gun Honey. I was like, steer the conversation. I really did enjoy the things like what Skip said. It had some good plot twists that I didn't see coming, which was like bravo. Then one of the plot twists that did come, I was like, oh my God, it's this. And then it was like, no, it's not that, it's this. It's like, oh. And I appreciate when you can do that. It was a cool story. I feel like it should have been 6 issues. It did feel a little rushed, but I'm not sure if it's because I'm so trained by modern comics that are decompressed. Maybe, like I was like, or is it just because this is written like a 90s comic where everything's just expedited and it's like we don't spend time where characters talking around, but it did feel kind of rushed. My one complaint about the book was the art. I try not to fault it too bad because it is a Titan book. It's not Marvel or DC. They don't have, it's hard for a small indie publisher to get all the top artists. The art is passable for me. Like it told the story, but this often occurs when the story is really good. When I go, man, the writing is good. Like this book is being held back by the art. If the writing was just okay and the art was just okay, then I'd be like, oh, you guys, it's balanced. But when you're like, man, writing this good I wish it had a better artist, like if like Brubaker, for example, you're reading, you get Sean Phillips art, you're like, yeah, if this were like Brubaker with this art, I'd be like, oh man, it's kind of holding back. That was
it'd be Christmas.
that was my problem. I didn't think that there was a lot of cheesecake, partly because cheesecake is all about the art. It's all about artists who like really know how to draw the female physique really well. And so this artist could draw women, but it wasn't good enough to where I was like, oh, that's really like, it was like, it's a little flawed. There was a lot of nudity, I think, and I don't think nudity is necessarily cheesecake. And like what you said, Vankman, it was her like using her body to do what she does. There was one scene though, I gotta tell you, I almost stopped reading the book in issue number 2.
Yep.
You were talking about how it's not like a woke book or anything like that.
It almost went there though.
There was one scene where I was like, oh God, nope, I'm done. Screw, But I heard Eric Breen's voice in the back of my head. Oh, this is my favorite writer. Blah blah blah. I was like, oh, I'm gonna keep going through. And it turned out I misinterpreted what I was seeing, and the scene that I saw was again her just using her body to get what she needed. I thought it was, like the stupid Cowboy Bebop unnecessary sex scenes that were just thrown in there for agenda. And I was like, nope, that's not what this was. And it was because I've been trained and I see stuff and I have reactions that I need to wait and not jump to conclusions. And I was glad that I stuck with the book and was like, oh no, actually it's not like this. And I love that she was capable, but she wasn't manly, right? It was definitely like the whole premise. For those of you guys that haven't read Gun Honey, what she is a person who's adept at sneaking into locations, often using her feminine wiles, and placing guns where they don't belong. And then the killer, the actual person who goes there, who can't get a gun in, now he's that person I think it's always a guy, has a gun and now can kill people with the gun. So she's sort of, and I was like, that's a really cool concept.
Yep.
Right? It's not her going in gun blazing, beating up tons of. No, she's capable. She can definitely, handle herself when there's threats, but only to a certain level, which is also awesome for the story because you feel like, oh, there's a threat. She's not just going to kick 250-pound men's ass single-handedly. I really enjoyed it. I like how it ended. It had a very James Bond. It kind of. The feel of the book, especially at the end, reminded me of like the old school, like Sean Connery style James Bonds. I was like, I had a smile on my face. I was like, this is a fun book. It's not like the greatest book I've ever read. And there's definitely flaws to it, but there's a charm and a soul to it. And I think for people who like this sort of stuff, obviously it worked. If they're getting a TV show and they're supposed to be doing a second Gun Honey series,
that's kind of what I said. Like when I go back to the old Selena Kyle, where she's smart, she outsmarts the person. She doesn't really get in a fight unless she has to. She uses her wits here. She uses her body because most goons are idiots. so like they said that at the end, the end part where she blends in, just to smuggle a gun, she gets the first issue. She got invited onto a boat, and then she uses that because this rich guy is like, I want the hot girl over there on the beach. And so she gets on the boat and just plants a gun, and then she leaves. Because she's not a thief. She just plants the gun. So and most people don't look twice at someone. They figure like, okay, well, that person obviously didn't shoot anybody because they left.
Right.
So I like what it is, and then of course she gets in trouble for something because something she does, and something happens, and then she's forced to try and fix it.
And the book starts off on a really cool opener. I don't want to hang too long on this book, but
no, I
love how it starts off where there's like a threat, and this guy is gonna kill her, and she's like, "Aha! I got the one up because I know where this gun was placed." So she's going to the location where the gun is supposed to be there because she planted it. And she's like,
Yeah,
oh,
it's
cool,
not
I can
there.
save myself with this. And it's not there. And then she's
Yeah.
like, what? You know? And it instantly, when I was reading it, it instantly grabbed me because I didn't really understand what gun hunting meant. And I was like, is it just supposed to be a sexy thing? No, it's not. It is a cool crime. Not really crime. It's more kind of espionage-y.
She's a honeypot.
Pulp espionage. Like old school Ian Fleming style. It's cool. It's a cool book, man. Those of you guys haven't checked it out, if anything we said sounded interesting,
Like,
please
even
try it.
The last issue, like a lot of the covers, like they give you like obviously there's the cheesecake, there's a model, there's the cosmic cover, but then there's like the James Bond kind of cover. Especially issue 4, there's a picture with her holding a gun, and there's the person in there, and then it has like the island in the background. So it's really cool. It's really James Bond-ish.
So I want to share a book that I discovered about a month ago, maybe 2 months ago. I'd never mentioned it. I thought about doing a video on it, and my life has gotten in the way of doing my videos. But up on the screen here this is a true indie book. True indie. It's not even available in stores. It's completely a fan book. It's not ever for sale. So if anyone wants a copy of this, doesn't know where to get it, just hit me up, and I can get you. It's basically shareware. It can't be sold because it doesn't have the rights to it. This is a total fan comic, but it's a well done fan comic. And I'm a Doom fan, so when I saw this, I was like, Bob Doom. And we talked earlier in the show about I was like, I appreciate absurdity. I was like, I gotta know what this is. And this is a really fun book. It's not mind blowing out of this world. It's a fan book, obviously, but it's not sharing the screen again. Damn you.
I can see it.
You can see it's on YouTube.
That's on the YouTube, but for
I
shows
can
the
see
cover.
it.
Yeah.
I can see it in Discord.
okay,
Yeah, I
cool.
see it.
Cool. So the book is about a dentist whose name is Bob Von Doom, and it opens up with this kid who the dentist is working on, and the kid's like, oh, and it starts off, and I'll just give you this first page, and you can kind of see the whole tone of the book. And the TV's playing. No one has claimed responsibility for the assassination of Victor Von Doom. Suggestions that a coup may be underway in Latveria. And
It's not going on YouTube now.
the kid is were you related to a supervillain? Gosh, no. Von Doom's a common name, like Smith or Annihilus. I never met another one. I'm sorry to disappoint you, Jimmy, but the only Dr. Doom here is me, Bob. And then the assistant pops in. Doctor? The Latvian embassy for you. The kid is looking at him like, what? And the whole tone of this is like, the idea is that Dr. Doom has been killed somehow, and this guy is an heir to, he's like a long lost heir, and so he becomes essentially the new Dr. Doom. And it's just silly and bonkers, but he's a dentist from, I think, New Jersey. Like, he's just a duke. and so he's running the country, not as Victor Von Doom would have run it, but as a dentist from New Jersey would run it. And everything collapses and fails. And he's like, I'm the nice Dr. Doom. But, like, the people are, they're like, oh, now that we have lots of free time, we can contemplate our existence, and we're not happy. Like, because Dr. Doom, like, worked them all to death so they could never uprise. So now they, like, uprise against them. And it's like, it's this really weird, funny satire. I just really enjoyed it, especially if you like Dr. Doom or Marvel Comics. It's really cute. It's free. It's a fan book, and it's indie. So if anyone wants it, I didn't know that it existed. I just found it. And then the other book that I discovered, another fan book, I don't know if I have a copy on hand. You know what? I'm not going to do the sharing. But if anyone is interested in this, I haven't finished it. And it's not exactly great, but it's worth mentioning. And it's a person who apparently got a hold of the story that what's the original director that was supposed to do the third Star Wars film? I forgot his name. Who did the Jurassic World films? What's his name? Not the Jurassic World, the Jurassic. Yeah.
It was the director?
The director.
Spielberg? I know Spielberg did the original one.
No. God, I'm drawing a blank on his name. This is a terrible show. Anyways, he got fired. Someone else can Google it for me. Maybe the chat will jump in. He got fired, and then J.J. Abrams came and did the third movie. Well, apparently this guy like had a story that he was gonna do and his idea, and it never came to pass. Well, apparently, whether how much you believe or whatever got leaked, this guy basically did his own fan comic based on that that story. And I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. Like, we can kind of see what the story would have been under Colin Trevorrow or something like that. Trevorrow. Yeah. He was the one who was originally going to do it, and he had his story or idea. So it's a 6-issue fan comic. The art is very fan comic, right? It's nothing you would buy yourself, but since it's free, if you're curious, if you're a Star Wars, I'm a big Star Wars nerd, so I was like, I'm really curious of what this story would have been. Even if it's not even real, even if it's this guy's story, I'm very curious to see. And I've only read the first 2 issues, and the writing itself feels very much like a story treatment more than a story, but it does feel like wherever the source of this story was had a much better grasp of where the story should go. And so for that part, I was like, I'm like, oh, it lends some legitimacy for me believing that this is a leaked story treatment that it's based off of, or it's just a fan who's got solid ideas, but it feels a lot right. And if you're a person like me who hates the final Star Wars movie, Rise of Skywalker, and are curious to see a different way that it could have happened, there's a 6-issue comic that it's the art is but you're just really more out of a curiosity thing. Get a hold of me on that too. I can provide you if you don't know how to find that. So anyways, just wanted to point that out.
Couldn't happen any better than it. It was awesome.
What's that?
So it couldn't have happened any better. It was awesome. I don't like it.
Okay. So anyways, I just wanted to bring those two because those are even though they're not the best comics I've read, they are standout for their own reasons. So any of you guys have anything like that that's maybe not the best thing, but it's just unusual or different or just stands out for any peculiar reason?
For indie books, I really don't read a lot of indie books. I've been reading more, a little bit of DC here and there.
You traitor. I can get you off the show.
you read a bunch of Dynamite books. What are you talking about, Vin?
Well,
yeah.
I've always been told those are indie. I've always been told those aren't real indie books. They're mainstream books.
Oh, what are you talking
Dynamite compared to Ultraman and all that stuff. Those
Dude, if Invincible is indie, then they're indie.
It's mainstream now.
If you
because they're big.
No, not bigger than Invincible. Look.
No. I'm just saying Invincible. Like Kirkman, Walking Dead, his Skybound has become one of the premier indie places to go.
Yeah.
For books.
No, but that's a good point. Skip makes you bring an angle from the indie comic world that Skip and I don't really delve much into, and that's the Dynamite Xenoscope world.
The Dynamite, I really got into that because I started reading some of the Vampirella books, the Warren ones, magazines. Then I saw that Harris took over from Warren, and I started reading from Toxinowski. He wrote one back in 1994, 95, called Adventures of Vampirella, and I got really into that. I had a different take on her origins. So most people know that Vampirella is pretty much from she's a planet called Dracula. She's like an alien. They changed the origin story that she wasn't. She's actually a daughter of Lilith, a fallen angel. She's not. So She had to deal with like her mother still being alive, and and just deal with angels and fallen angels, just with trying to live a normal life on Earth. She her world crumbling down because everything she thought was a lot knew was a lie, and it went for 25 issues with her dying in the last issue. With the Vengeance of Vampirella, they got the same writer to come back, like in 2018. I think actually no, 2019, my bad. And he just continued this where he left off with her resurrection and her going against Nyx, who was created back then for that series, and just like her saving like a dystopian Earth that's been like ruled by by the daughter of Chaos Lords and just monsters and ghouls. There's like hardly any humans left. They're like hiding in subway tunnels and stuff like that, just trying to stay alive, not making noise. So it was kind of cool to see something like that on pause for 25 years to come back. And it really drew me in. It's sad because I've read some other Vampirella books back in the day, and Christopher Priest had taken over like writing one, the main title, and it's just like what I saw he was doing. I was just like, it's every day what I see at DC and Marvel. It's propaganda. It's not really even like what Vampirella was. This is a guy that's throwing it in and putting in what he wants to put in there, and not really staying true to what the book was about. So yeah, Vampirella has been really good for me for Dynamite. I just got into the new series Jennifer Blood. It's another volume on that, and just pretty much it's not Garth Ennis, but it feels like what Garth Ennis would do. And I know Garth Ennis has actually written a volume of Jennifer Blood back in the series, but she's pretty much like a daughter of a mobster who pretty much got revenge on her family and just became a vigilante. She's kind of like the Punisher in a sense. She goes after criminals and mobsters, and they're all scrambling. Like in Jennifer Blood issue 1, it's this little synopsis that she's believed that apparently in the past volume she with the president and she's believed to be dead, but someone's going around like this little town where like in the middle of nowhere, where basically like when the FBI makes deals with informants, these high-end mobster people types, the criminals, go to this little community. So they all live there because they're all under like a new name, like witness protection stuff, because they all be snitch on the other people, go to jail. So they got this deal to be free. People start dying in that little community. They're all criminals. That's what's funny. Like there's like families and all that stuff, the kids stuff. Every single one of them is a criminal in this little town, and she's just going and basically someone's going around and killing them. They all assume it's her, but they can't be because she's dead. So it's there's only 2 issues come out. Like I said, it makes me want to go back and just read some more, like just Garth Ennis. Like if you ever read Welcome Back Frank with Garth Ennis, the Punisher series back in the day, it's got the same kind of vibe to it. So it's really like piqued my interest. This is a character I've seen in the back of the day. I kind of glanced at it, I was like, oh, this looks kind of dumb, and then Dynamite's been doing this thing where they've been doing cross promotion for all their titles and called Dynamite Dies. Where basically zombie. It's like a zombie book, pretty much what it was. It came out in 2020, went for 5 issues. It brings I don't want to spoil it all really much, but it brings in every character you want in there. Then they did a second volume called Dynamite Lives, and that introduces Ash Williams, in there, and you find out that Necronomicon is involved with a lot of stuff going on. You got Red Son, you got Vampirella, you got Jennifer Blood in there, you got Thunderbolt, who's a really old character. You got Captain, I think it's Captain Terror, and a lot of basically the Project Superpowers teams. It's everybody you can think about that Dynamite owns, and then some of the Chaos characters are thrown in there. It's a cool little crossover event, and they like each volume is like 6 issues. I'm usually a fan of doing more, but like these have been actually really good, and I love the fact that like they're actually keeping the personalities of each individual character putting in there. If they're not throwing in there for like for a cheap play, like they throw Ash in there. Ash is really what he is. He's an idiot in the numbskull from Army of Darkness. They keep the same Bruce Campbell kind of slapstick comedy for him.
Nice.
him hitting on Vampirella. And
Nice.
Vampirella kind of teases him, and then like there's other people in there just like, it's like, hey, can you guys like do this afterwards, with you save the world? Because Vampirella is like a sexual character, like and like more promptly in this than she is in her own series, but it's like it's just funny. I love the horn dog Ash thing, and that's what I love always with the Evil Dead comic book. I mean, Darkness. They've always been fun.
Right.
But yeah, that's I've been really just diving into that. Xenoscope is another one I just got into through Mr. E 2099 last year. He was on Engelteen's channel. I was called I Love Comics. Now it's Engelteen Loves Comics. He introduced me to basically grim fairy tales, which my first assumption that I don't know anything about it whatsoever. I remember seeing the books now that people talking about it. It's the cheesecake covers and all that stuff and the fairy tale characters. But before that, I kept thinking, what is this, like another Once Upon a Time? Because I've seen this up before. I've seen Grimm. I'm thinking, oh great, what is this? Then I realized, so I went back there and I realized this is the book I passed up on back in 2013 because it looked really mature for the covers. it's like cheesecake is like, wow, these are risque cheesecake. This is like stuff you cannot bring home to your mother. Your mother will scold you and you'll be kicked out of the house. Or if your girlfriend is like, what are you buying this crap?
Right.
So I opened up the books, I started reading them. I was like, wow, they actually keep they take the characters and like they female characters, they're a little spit on them, and the female character leads, are pretty much, it's like gun hunting. They are what they are. They're not, there's just cheesecake art to them, but like there's Robin Hood. She's pretty much the story of Robin Hood, but it's a female character, and but they put a spin on it. But but she's not like better than everybody else. She makes mistakes, and then she's like always cursing herself because she's like getting herself into jams. So it is what it is. I mean, I would implore some people to like pick up some of these books. Like Red Agent, which is basically like a Red Riding Hood, spin up, but she can turn into a werewolf, but she can control other wolves through a telepathic link. So you can control them.
Mm-hmm.
There's Belle, who's pretty much beating the beast, but it's like she comes from a line of like basically monster hunters. Her mother was a hunter too, so she disappeared, so she took up the family line. Her family was wealthy, so it's kind of, and she lived like in a little castle. I always joke because when I started reading it, I was like, oh my gosh, this is like Bruce Wayne if he was a girl and just hunted monsters. That's all he did. And then she loses like her wealth, like her access to all this stuff. Her house is destroyed. Her butler, is killed and stuff. And so she's basically like disenfranchised and has to live with her friend who talks to a turtle. It becomes her girl in the chair. It's kind of stupid humor in there, but the action is good. And like I said, you're not getting what it would be if it would have been like a Marvel book. I mean, as much as I praise Kelly Thompson on Black Widow, what she does on Captain Marvel is atrocious. And that's what I was afraid when I started getting the Xenoscope. Like, oh my gosh, it's got this. And I was pleasantly surprised. You're getting solid art. You're getting like we do get like Adam Hughes covers and art in your interior artwork, but you're actually getting a good solid story. You're not getting like oh, it's just this girl beats up everybody.
Right.
It's realistic to me. As far as that much.
Speaking of things, go ahead.
Yeah,
go ahead and finish.
I was just gonna say, when I think of the Grim Fairy Tale stuff with the girls, I think of like if you ever read Danger Girl with J. Scott Campbell worked on that.
I haven't.
And I think the guy is Scott Hamilton. Can't remember what his name is. The other one who wrote it. It's pretty much the same feeling. It's like basically what you get, like super spies and stuff. But you're getting the twist on the fable, and you're actually getting entertainment. So that's my last plug for that. Yeah, I mean, I love the Norse. I love the Titan books. I've been getting into those too as well. Titan comics. Normandy Gold was the first one I read. I'm reading Gun Honey, and I've been.
Oh, you're talking about the hard case books.
All the hard case books.
I definitely want to check some more of those out. I like the concept of the pulp kind of fiction-y stuff.
Like I said, I love. I mean, it doesn't have to be a girl as a main lead. I just want a decent story, crime story, and I want some art that I can actually like tell what's going on. I don't want like where it's just like they look like they're in that screaming painting over there. Like I don't want Roswell art.
Right.
That's like you can have the best story, but if you give me Roswell art, it just really brings out like just my interest. But yeah, that's my little pitch for some other ones. That's my cheesecake corner. Need to contact me.
Well, speaking of bad art, but still better than Marvel, I found the Star Wars book. It's called Star Wars Duel of the Fates, and I should have just had it because it has Trevorrow's name. The person who did the book credits Trevorrow as the writer, so he doesn't. He has a foreword and says, "Look, this isn't me. I'm just putting the story together." And the art, like it's a fan book. You're not going to get the greatest art, but it's not impossible to watch. You can see the cover here. It's not the greatest, but and honestly, like I said, I don't typically read licensed stuff. This isn't really, obviously it's not licensed, this is like stolen, but I don't read licensed stuff because I don't care. I want the original deal, but this is better so far. This is better than that movie that we actually got, Rise of Skywalker, and it's better than the Marvel comic. The art's not as good as the Marvel comics, but the story, I feel like this is more Star Warsy. It doesn't feel agenda driven. It feels like it's someone trying to write for good or ill, trying to do justice with these characters. And so, like I said, if anyone's out there, they're like, hey, I kind of like Star Wars 2 or whatever, whether you're disappointed in the movies or not, you can be. I'm disappointed as well, but it doesn't mean if you're curious. Anyways, I just brought that back up. There was something else I just lost in my brain that I was going to mention. Skip, you've been kind of quiet for a while. You still with us? Did RDV put you to sleep?
No, I'm still here. I'm just hanging out.
Oh, cool. Cool. Yeah, I ate some cheesecake today.
I actually bought Oreo cheesecake today.
Oh, that's interesting. I only like the plain New York style cheesecake.
I'm venturing out into the Oreo stuff.
I do love Oreos, but separate.
I was like, Oreos and cheesecake?
I'm a purist in many things, and cheesecake also is one of those.
I can't fault the Martian Manhunter for liking Oreos.
They are delicious, 100%. Especially
Chocolatey goodness, sponsored by
plain in milk or in ice cream, but not cheesecake. Not for me, at least.
Yeah, we'll see how it goes. I mean, I've been at a no-bake one, and I've had the real one. So
I see.
So it's like I'm venturing. I'm like, I really don't like the real cheesecake. I like the fake. I like the fake. So I'm like, I'm like, this might be the mutual ground that I have. I haven't tried it yet. So I'm like, I'll see how it goes. I mean, I spent $5 on it. I'm gonna eat it regardless. It's a lot of money spent on food. But
so we didn't get a chance to talk about this. I don't think on previous shows because of the way it wrapped up and the timing of it all. But there's a book that all three of us read, which was Fight Girls.
I thought you said Tom King, Batman, Ken.
No, all three of us definitely did not read that. Fight Girls.
Mm-hmm.
Did you both finish it?
Yeah, I did. Yeah.
How'd you guys think about how it wrapped up?
I'll let Skip talk. He hasn't talked about.
I enjoyed it. It was actually gonna be one of the books that I was gonna suggest if Righteous Thirst for Vengeance hadn't come out today. I was gonna suggest that we talk about Fight Girls because I know we had kind of been kicking it around back and forth. It was a satisfying ending to me. It definitely a twist that I didn't expect seeing, but one that made sense. To me ultimately. I really appreciate the fact in a similar sense of how Gun Honey was more than met the eye, so was Fight Girls. It was kind of, I don't want to say it was the deepest plot in the world, but it was definitely a deeper, undercover, takeover and coup type thing than I expected. But yeah, I really enjoyed the ending, and I like how they tied it in to the king, and naturally, who would want to get the king out of the way? So yeah, kudos to Frank Cho for pulling off another one, and big kudos to AWA, because I'm really feeling like they might have arguably the best editorial in comics right now.
Absolutely. What about you, Venkman?
Yeah, I liked it all the way through. I like the fact that you thought it was one thing, and then it shows you like, hey, you're like, okay, now I figured out this person's not who they are, and then the plot twist at the end, it's like, wait, what?
Right?
It's like I
didn't-
was like, I didn't guess that whatsoever. I'm figuring like, okay, like that's what's going. I'm like, oh, it's starting to get a little creepy, you know, with the when you see the king.
Right.
I'm like, whoa. Well, I'm like, no cheesecake for this. This is bad cheesecake. I'm like, poor girl, no, get out of there.
Right.
Run.
Yeah,
But-
I think
but,
everyone had
yeah.
those same emotions when they were reading it. They're like, "Oh my God, where is this going?"
Like this guy looks like the guy from Dune. I was getting Dune flashbacks from the 70s.
Ooh. Yeah, totally was. It totally reminded
like-
me of him.
He's sitting there floating, and I'm like, no, stop.
I appreciated the twist. At first, I was like, that feels a little weird, rushed, kind of contrived. But the more I thought about it, the more I liked it. But one thing I really liked about it was how it ended, like after the twist, like how the kind of the epilogue.
Yes.
I was like, oh my God, this is set up to be like a reoccurring series, like with these characters.
Yep.
And you could have all new adventures. Like Fight Girls isn't what you think it is. When you see it, you're like, oh, it's this thing. And then by the time you get to the end, you're like, oh, but it really wasn't. Like if we continued it, it would be not Fight Girls anymore. It'd be something else. But they would have different adventures. Like I don't know. I want to see those characters in different completely different stories, but like in the same future weird universe that they created. That's where I was, at least. And I just had so much fun with it. I was like, bravo, Frank Cho. Like, to me, that's like the equivalent of a popcorn movie in comics. It wasn't anything like I'm going to shout out and give awards to, but it was just fun. Like, I never was like, oh, this is boring. And I was just, just stuffing the popcorn in my face, just with this grin on my face as I'm reading it. So if any of you guys listening in haven't checked out Fight Girls, especially if you're like me and had bias towards it because of what it looks like it is, it's a lot more than what the cover makes you think. There is substance to the book. It's a little bit of substance, not a ton, but it's just enough to create a groundwork to where all the fun and adventure that happens in the book, you can just sit back and enjoy. And that's my opinion of it. You guys agree? Think it's?
Yeah, you guys encouraged me to get it, so I bought the first 2 issues. I'm like, it's Frank Cho. Man, the worst it could be is like it's a okay story, but like I know Frank Cho always delivers on his word. So I bought the first 3 issues blindly, and I read it. I was like, oh my gosh, it's actually pretty good. And then I bought the next one, and then the next one, I was like, and like I said, like it surprised me.
And it's not
There's
cheesecake.
No.
I totally thought it was going to be cheesecake.
By the cover, though, it looks like it. And that's kind of what the Xenoscope kind of looks like, cheesecake on the covers. But when you actually open them up, the books, it's not cheesy as you think it would be.
Yeah, like it reminds me of just kind of like 80s comics where they would draw girls with like
the 90s bad girls.
Well, just they would draw girls with like hot bodies.
Well, yeah, that's
but,
yeah.
But Frank Cho never sexualizes them really.
Nope. There was no weak cakes.
It's just like watching the Olympics. Like you're like, oh, that's a good looking girl, but it's not like they're sexy, like where they're running track or something. You're just like, oh, it's a good looking girl.
That's what NBC's missing when they have their competitions.
Yeah, it's the difference between watching like a female sporting event where you can appreciate attractive women who have fit bodies versus like a Victoria's Secret catalog.
It reminded me of you want to remind me of The Amazing Race, but like you actually put a story to it.
Right. Yeah. So anyone, because I'm not a cheesecake person. Normally, when I see things at cheesecake, I'm just like, just avoid it. So that's kind of my bias. Kind of kept me away from it. So if anyone else is out there is like, it's not really my style. Don't let that get in the way, because it's really not. It's no more cheesecake than like say X-Men was in the 80s.
So there's one more book that it's 5 issues long. It started in March and then ended in July. And it's by a book that I was actually recommended. I think it was by Skip actually recommended to read it. In space on our love of cars, 80s vibe, synthwave.
Oh yeah,
Skip
I'm surprised that Skip didn't talk about this book, but there's a lot of books to talk about. It's easy to overlook something.
Brian Edward Hill brought up from AWA Upshot, brought us Chariot.
Yeah, absolutely.
This book blew me away. This is a book, it's like, okay, it's kind of cool cover. It's kind of 80s stuff and all. Like, then I opened it up and I just read it. It's like, wow, like there's not a single character that I did, didn't like, that I did not like, like there was the ex-wife in her, but like even her, like you can tell that she's still kind of like cared for the guy. But he couldn't tell. But it looked like she was jealous because of this, whatever is going on. I don't want to spoil it. It's a 5-issue thing, and it's been opted. So speculators try to find these issues.
Dude, not only has it been opted, it's been opted by one of my favorite filmmakers, a director called Joseph Kosinski, who's known most famously for Tron Legacy. I think it's called Legacy, the sequel Tron movie. And he also did Oblivion with Tom Cruise, and he's doing the upcoming sequel to Top Gun, which comes out next year. And then he did another movie, which I hadn't seen until recently, called Only the Brave, which is a movie about forest firefighters, which was really good. I'm like, this guy's gonna do the movie, especially after what he did with Tron and Oblivion. I'm like, he understands, like he's gonna bring a really strong visual and sound design feel to this movie that I think it needs. Like if it's done wrong, but if it's done the way I think it could be done, it's gonna blow a lot of people away. This is a cool book. I'm surprised Skip hasn't jumped in.
Yeah, the synopsis on this, it's basically Knight Rider meets Matrix. So if you like Knight Rider, like the car, and then you love the Matrix and all that stuff, what's real, what's not real.
Yeah, it is kind of like that, but it doesn't have like the cheesiness of Knight Rider. If people are remembering Knight Rider from the 80s,
it doesn't have the Hoff.
It doesn't have the Hoff, although it could.
But I love how the book leaves it open up, so where it does, like, they're like it is kind of like Knight Rider, like we're gonna help one person a day. There's always someone that needs help, so we're gonna continue on.
Well, what I liked that's how the book kind of ends up being at the end, like the epilogue for like more stories. But what I loved about it was that the story that we got wasn't that. It was more kind of the origin story, like what is this car? Who's this guy that's driving? Like, what's the whole deal? And I thought it was a very inventive kind of. There were things that we've seen before, like you can definitely tell, like, oh, you're borrowing from this, you're borrowing from that, but like how you put it all together to make it its own thing, I thought was really cool. My biggest complaint about the book, and this could be totally changed when they make it into a movie, and in fact, I would be shocked if they didn't, was there wasn't enough like driving scenes, like for a story about a car. But again, like how much exciting can you do driving in a comic? You can show panels, like it's not movement. But I really would love to see really cool shots of this car like doing its thing. And after seeing stuff like I said, Tron and Oblivion, he knows how to do that.
Like I said, this is the guy. He's like down on his luck. He owes people money. He gets his car, starts working on it, and then the car like basically once he works on it, like the AI program like comes alive, and he's gets wrapped up in this war between this person who wants the car, and then like the car is pretty much he's like just caught in the middle of it.
Yeah. And when he's
It's
got his own story going on,
yep
then they
yep
kind of
sweet.
cross over, and the car and he don't really get along at first, but they kind of need each other. So they're kind of doing a tit for tat, sort of like I'll help you, you help me. But then they grow on each other. There's a lot going on. I don't think Brian Hill had enough time to really explore all the ideas. That's why I'm excited for this to be made in a movie, because I'm like, it almost feels like Chariot is like a rough draft in many ways. And I don't say that to bag on it. It's very much worth your time, and you can get the trade. It's only $9.99, I think.
Yeah.
So, but
I was looking at it. Is this kind of like a cyberpunk,
yeah, it is a little bit cyberpunk for sure.
Especially how he communicates with the AI in the car, like little minor spoilers that she basically injects like a device in the back of his head,
Yeah,
kind of like the Matrix has thing. So he's like pretty much hurts him, but he's able to like go into like this cyberspace and like communicate with her like that way. Or like Knight Rider, he had a fancy watch communicator.
He's that's one of the things that you can
he's got BioWare.
Right, that's one of the things when you read the book, you're like, oh, that's completely borrowed. Like the whole jack in from the back of your head type thing, and then go into the virtual, like you're like, oh yeah, that's totally taken from the Matrix. But the way it's executed for its use in this story, there is no Matrix. It just takes some cues from other things, and you can tell that Brian Hill is a fan of lots of different things, and he borrows from that, and he remixes. That's what Chariot is, like a remix, right? Yep. It's like a hip hop band taking old famous rock music and then like redoing it for their songs. That's kind of what it is. But it's enjoyable. I was pleased. Like I said, my biggest complaints was that it wasn't fleshed out more.
There's a few car chases in here, like the car comes to help him out and stuff. But like I said, more driving.
Yeah, it was like one panel. You see the car.
It's only like 5 issues though. Like and
it's very quick and breezy.
Yeah, that's like saying if it would have had more in depth and stuff in that, flesh it out.
Yeah, just like one more issue, and like maybe have a more drawn out set piece of like a chase and whatever. It didn't ruin the book, but it stood out to me as something I was like, wait a second, we got this badass car that can do all this stuff, but we don't get to see it do that much stuff.
There's a lot of talking.
Yeah.
It's between him and the AI in the car, and then him dealing with like his ex-wife, and then wanting to be in his son's life.
Yeah.
And all that stuff. And just it's another book that I read was I think it was from last year. It was called Backtrack, and I forgot if that's I can't remember if that's an Upshine or an AWA. I'm not sure what it is, but it's basically about this girl who basically like she's offered this like that she's basically been a driver. She's always good at driving. Getaway driver, and she's offered this mysterious guy comes to the bar, and he kind of has like the red suit, he has like the cane and stuff, and they can like he's putting it kind of the devil. He offers her a deal. What if I could? He's like, what if you could like undo one thing? You think that you most regret. You had the chance to go back and redo it and fix it. I'm offering that chance, but all I can do is win this race. And throughout the issues, there's other people who basically want to win the race too. And they wanted to like undo something, fix a past mistake. It involves time travel, going like the race is basically they're going through like they go through Rome, through like the Jurassic period and all different things.
I think I heard about this.
And Pompeii was one, I think was one of them too. And just like it was actually pretty good for what it was. The girl basically wanted to save her brother. She felt responsible for her brother's death and stuff. So she's like, and then the problem is that she learns like I love Holly. She basically learns she can't be selfish. She can't just think about her brother. But the whole time she's struggling. Do I want to be that person who only cares about myself, or I see this other person here, like that it really deserves it, It's like, and then how do you decide? And this like, and like then there's a guy who's basically, you find out he's been in the race multiple times. He finds his way in, gets into it. He's just trying to go after the person that's in charge of the race, and it's just fun, you know. It's kind of like Fight Club. We're not Fight Club, but we just watch Fight Girls. Kind of similar on that. They're competing for something, and everybody has their own little agendas. So I just discovered that by accident. I was like, wow, what is this? It's like it's racing, and it's like it's time travel, and it's just like just like a game. Like it's something I could see to be probably be a poorly written sci-fi show, or a movie. Like you'd find a Blockbuster, like, what is this? Like, oh, got rented. I'm like, oh my gosh, why did I rent that? But it's like it'd be a very low budget if they did it though. And it never got optioned for a movie.
Right.
But it was said that was when I started venturing in more into like the indie stuff. Like I was thinking Dynamite being more mainstream now because the characters. Red Sonja is very popular, Vampirella is very popular, and all that stuff. But when I go some of these other books like Chariots, like that's indie to me. That's not. It's like a little mini series, and then it goes away. It's not a recurrent character who's been around for years. Like Vampirella's been around for years. Red Sonja has been around for years. Started off in Marvel.
Yeah, but I mean, you can have. I mean, some indie characters. I mean, Usagi Yojimbo has been around for 35 years plus. That's definitely indie.
Yeah, I'm just saying, like, for me, there's different levels of indie. There's more popular indie books that have had multiple ongoings, and then there's ones who just kind of like they were there and then they're just kind of like gone, or they're the ones they're not as popular, so it's hard to find their books.
Well, a lot of the indie stuff nowadays, well, I mean, is a lot of just mini series stories. They're not really, they're not designed in concept. Like when Vampirella was created, it was during an era of time where like almost all comics were just ongoing. So Vampirella was a magazine, and you bought the magazine and you got new Vampirella stories, just like if you bought the Conan magazines, and so. Yeah, I mean that's kind of the way that was. Speaking of like indie books that aren't around, Skip is AFK. Here's a book that's not his style here, but there you go. Transition it over here to the YouTube's King of Spies. Did you get a chance to look at this, Venkman?
Never heard of it.
It's brand new. Like it came out like a week or two ago. From Mark Millar. But it's Mark Millar, his own Millar World series published under Image. So there's a good chance that this will be a Netflix show or movie because Millar World's owned by Netflix. But this, I like Mark. I'm biased. I like Mark Millar, but I don't always love. So his stuff is sometimes really amazing. Sometimes it's just pretty good. But I always just enjoy it. But this first issue knocked my socks off. This was
the premise looks pretty cool too.
Slam dunk book that's just action packed, gets you from the get go with fantastic art by Matteo Scalera.
I like the cover for the first issue.
Who most people you'll know because he's the guy. Matteo Scalera is the artist for the White Knight Harley Quinn series. So that's where you'll know him from. And this art is bomb. This whole book is just action-packed, great art, over the top. That's one of the things I love about this book is it's over the top. It feels like a Michael Bay flick. Like if you've seen like Bad Boys 2 where it's just like the action is just retarded. You're like that would never happen. Only in Hollywood.
It feels like a movie though.
It does feel like a movie.
I think I've seen this movie before with Ethan Hawke, where he has 6 months to live, or he has to get revenge before he dies.
Well, maybe the premise is not the most original, but I guarantee you haven't seen this. This is basically if James Bond was crossed over with Rambo, crossover with John McClane, and he had 6 months to live, and he's just a badass. And the whole first part of the book is just action scenes setting up how amazing this guy is.
Yeah, I'm looking at the premise
So that you
of this.
can get to the part of the story where he's now an old man, and obviously he's not going to be quite as on the level, but the art in this book is fantastic. It's just fun in every sense of the word. It's not going to be existential, deep meaning, anything, but if you just want slam bam action, cool dialogue, cool concepts with good art that matches the writing, King of Spies is a 4-issue miniseries. I'm
Pierce Brosnan.
happy for it. I hope it stays up on this level. Like I said, I'm not always loving everything Mark Millar does, but this is something that I want to see this done in this as a movie by Matthew Vaughn, the guy who did Kick-Ass and The Englishman. Like that guy do this as a movie, it would be slam dunk.
Yeah, he looks like Pierce Brosnan with that full beard going on there.
Oh yeah, they could totally do that too. They could, because he's old, so
yeah, they could totally do that.
Totally do Pierce Brosnan, and they have the technology, to de-age. So cast Pierce Brosnan, de-age him for the early scene where he's young, and then that'd be fantastic. I would, if you cast Pierce Brosnan, it would really help sell the James Bond aspect of this character.
Right. Who's that other actor? He's in Don't Breathe. He's been in. He's always.
I love that guy. Is it Nathan? Is it Nathan Lane? No. John Lang.
I think it's John Lang.
Yeah.
Let me double check. Stephen Lang.
Stephen Lang. There we go. Yes, I like him. I like him quite a bit.
He plays a rugged guy. Just the guy you don't want to.
That guy. I feel I didn't discover him until Avatar. And I'm like, where has this guy been my whole life? Like, this guy's great.
I watched him in I think it was VFA. I think it was the last one. And just he played like one of a bar with a bunch of veterans, and like this girl comes in, she's like running on she stole a bunch of drugs from this guy, and like they're coming to the bar. It's like one last stand, and it has the guy like it plays Creases in there too. Like they're all like this former Vietnam soldiers in there, and they have to hold their own against like this just waves and waves of these goons, because their problem is if they bring the girl and get stuff, they get as much drugs as they want. So it's crazy. It's called, I think it's called VFA. I have to look it up, but I don't want to stray too far away from it. But he's a phenomenal actor in that too. Yeah, definitely check out his stuff. He's gonna be in Avatar 5. He was in Tombstone. That's right. Yeah, he's in there too. Wow, this guy's been in a lot of movies.
All right.
VFW. Check that movie out. If you're gonna watch Stephen Lang movie, check out VFW. That's probably the best I've seen.
I know nothing.
Going back to the movie, you're talking about King of Spies. I'm looking up on League Comic Geeks and talking about he's 6 months. He knows where all the bodies are buried, pretty much. He's been for the past 40 years building up this, unfair system, with this, this group of people, spies.
Mm-hmm.
And now he knows all the secrets, and he's like their most dangerous threat, and he has nothing left to lose. That's cool. And I love the cover for issue 1. You look at that there's a default cover, and it has like looks like the British colors and the flag is stripping off what would be like a casket or table on the end. It has the human, like the scope sight, the font, and then you have the cigarettes open. Then there's some bullet shells, and then like a glass of scotch. It's just, I love that cover. It just fits really well for me. And then you go to the next issue, like the covers. So far, it shows there's 3 issues. I'm not how many issues it's gonna be. This is gonna be a little mini series, or is it be like 6 books? But I'm like. No, I'm gonna add this. I'm gonna have to add this to my pool series. I did not see this.
All right, Skip, are you back yet? Skip had to take a break for some. This was going on pretty long, so I don't want it to go on forever. It's been a pleasure to have you on, RDV. We wrap up our shows usually with what's coming out next week, so we can do some recommendations, point some people out.
I'll just say one thing. I'm really enjoying Firepower.
Oh yeah, me too.
And I
Firepower.
called him the giant snake dragon.
Too bad. Too bad. Firepower's on hiatus, so we're gonna have to wait until March to see.
March?
Yeah.
I'll forget about it by then.
No, you won't, because we'll be doing a show about it.
There'll be more books coming out before that, so it's like, yeah.
But do you see any books on here that I'm displaying that look like something you might be interested in?
I've never got into Stray Dogs. You know, Power Rangers. I watched the first season of the show. Never got into the books. Hey, look, there's Hellboy. Ice Cream Man. I did. Skip goes by that. Says really good. I know some other people said really good. Firefly. I mean, I never watched the show, so I don't really have a connection to that. Manifest Destiny. Never heard that. It looks kind of weird. Cover. Scroll down once a bit.
No, we're just covering the first 14 here.
Oh, the first 14. Okay.
So, what about? I think Skip is back.
I was just trying to figure out what that cover is with the robot. It's I think it's called Black Hammer.
Oh, that's a Blue Flame.
Black Hammer Reborn, number 7.
Oh, that's a different robot.
Oh, yeah.
Skip
yeah,
said he's back, but I don't hear Skip.
Hey, what's up, y'all?
Hey, welcome back, Skip.
Thank you.
We're on the coming up week's comics recommendations or just pointing out stuff. I was seeing if there was anything that caught Venkman's eye, but these aren't really probably his style books. Looks like there's a new Stray Dogs book coming out next week. You picking that up?
Yep. Yeah, I'll be picking that up. Supporting Brad, the homie Brad, doing the colors. Echolands, of course, jumps out to me. It continues to be one of the most immersive comic books there is out there. I know the landscape layout can be seen as a gimmick, and I've seen some people kind of say as much, but also one of those people was reading digital. So I think if they really got an opportunity to read the physical, that's kind of the only way to respect truly the approach that the writer and the artist took on that. And then, of course, Sweet Paprika as well, because I've been following along with that, and I just finally got issue 3, so I'll jump into it. And then Ice Cream Man 27, that being my favorite ongoing series currently.
Paprika, that looks a little cheesecakey. That looks like a comedy thing?
Yeah, I mean, you can kind of look at it like rom-com. It's definitely a romance book by Mirka and Dolfo, but it's really charming. And I out the gate am not interested in a premise about, effectively a demon and an angel having a relationship. That's actually something that turned me off to it when I first heard about the book coming out. I'm more often than not, I enjoy Mirka and Dolfo, but a lot of her books easily just aren't things that I'm the most interested in. But I had heard a few people, again, I think it was Rock and Robbie Billups from Pop Culture Philosophers, give it a solid after the first 2 issues came out. So I went ahead and grabbed issue number 1, and yeah, it's very charming, very compelling. The narrative is a great driving force within the book, and then everything else about the writing is like I said, very, very, very charming, slightly enchanting. So I decided to put it on my pull list. I just haven't grabbed issue 3 because other things have kind of been coming up as more important. But I've been having a really good time with romance comics lately, and I have a bunch of old romance back issues that I was talking to Breen about. I'm going to jump into after the first of the year.
Yeah, the reason I ask because it kind of looks like you're going to be like a manga or an anime thing, the art.
Yeah, I mean, some of Mirka, because Mirka, what I like about Mirka and Dolfo is that she has a style that's popular that like people will pay her to do, but she has other styles as well. And it was nice to see her kind of slightly update or modify one of her art styles to kind of accommodate this book. But I would liken it to Sex Criminals, where it seems like it's a very apparent garish kind of premise, something that's kind of low-hanging fruit, anything dealing with like sexual things, especially if it's this book, it's not grotesque, I would say, but it is explicit. But I was happy to find out yet again that there's a deeper narrative to the book, more than meets the eye, and like I said, it's pretty compelling.
Yeah, otherwise it gets close to that risque stuff. Be careful what you buy. The adult.
Yeah,
stuff.
for sure. I mean, it's definitely an adult.
It skirts it with the cover. That's all I was like, it's not an adult book. It looks like it's Image. I'm like, I had to double check. Is this Image? Because I saw it on the shelf today. I was flipping through. I was like, okay, it doesn't look too bad. Maybe something I might have to dive into if I can find issue 1.
Well, the book that I'm going to push that's from up here is going to be Echolands, and I want to echo what you said, Skip. As a person who reads almost predominantly on digital, Echolands, same thing. I was reading on digital, and it's not the same experience. Is
it the landscape book?
Yeah, the thing is a lot of the pages are like double page spread, but in the landscape, so it's like super wide format.
Yeah.
And even like on an iPad Pro with like a 12-inch screen, it's just like you got the letterbox, and it just stretched across. It does not come across the same. Or you can like zoom in, but then you got to scroll side. You can read it that way, but it's the experience. If you'll just think it's a gimmick if you don't actually experience it the way that the artist intended. And I really do think they're utilizing this format in a proper way. It's kind of like when James Cameron made Avatar and everyone accused him like, oh, 3D is just a gimmick. And it's like, well, no, he actually shot the film conceptually with 3D in mind, which is kind of why it was so impressive. He wasn't just like doing the dumb thing of like, look, a ball comes out of the screen and you think it's going to hit you, like a lot of 3D movies beforehand had done.
Yeah, he invented new camera technology just to shoot that type of 3D.
Right. And he also, if you've ever listened to like interviews from him, he like talks about how the way these scenes are set up, they're set up to be the opposite of what 3D was often known for, which was like, popping out of the screen and like, oh my God, it's going to hit me. If anyone has ever seen Captain EO, there's some really cool scenes of like where like an alien flies out of the screen and you're like, oh, he's like right in front of my face. And that's cool and all, but it is kind of a gimmick. Where James Cameron shot it more like a shadow box, like where like, so you were like looking into, and he kind of changed how we saw 3D. And he used it to actually show depth rather than gimmick. Anyways, Echolands does a similar type of thing here where they use the wide screen thing to show you scenes and illustration that previously wouldn't have been able to come across well, I guess is what I'm trying to say. It's not the best book on the shelf, but it's absolutely one of the books that I appreciate collecting the most, and it is entertaining and it's gorgeous to look at.
Yeah, and the immersion goes beyond just the art too. Like there's even pages like from a fictional reporter, like an interview with the main antagonist, and even those things like build out the world. So it's immersive from an artistic standpoint and from a writing standpoint. You do get some pages at the end of the story that are all prose, so it in its own way it gets to immerse you fully within just text and literature as well. It's something to check out. Yeah.
So this next section of books here, I still haven't read Good Boy #1 yet because I can't get a digital version of it, so I'm kind of stubborn that way, but I gotta dig this out and read it because the #2 is coming out. And has any of you gotten to read it yet, Skip or RDB?
First heard of it.
Keeps getting pushed back and back on my list. I got a backup right now, and it's funny. That's actually the next book that I'm going to be reading after I finish the one that I started earlier today.
All right. So so RDB, Good Boy, it's an indie book. It just sounded interesting. I decided to try it on a whim because it was super indie, hard to find. And it's basically take the concept of John Wick and reverse it.
You killed my human.
Yes.
Kill you.
You killed my human.
Nice.
So
now I definitely have to go check it out. I want to see how crazy it's gonna get.
So the premise is in a world where dogs are anthropomorphic. I guess so. There's a partner, like dog and human partner, but the human gets killed. So as you can see on the cover here, the dog guy. Anyway, I haven't read it, so I can't speak too much on it. But it sounds really cool. The art is neat. And I just was jonesing for like a different kind of indie. And I missed out on the Stray Dogs when it came out originally. And I just was like kicking myself. And I was like, I'm going to pick up these books and give them a try. I don't want to miss out in case this might be something.
First glance, I thought it was Hit Monkey.
Hit Monkey.
The blood, tire, and all that stuff.
There's a new Dune series coming out here. I still haven't read the previous ones. Did either of you read any of the Dune comics?
I never was really in Dune, so I mean, like, I never really watched. I only watched like parts of the first movie. I never really watched anything else after that. I haven't seen the new one, so I wonder if that's gonna continue from like the movie, or if that's like a whole new thing separate.
Well, these comics are based off of the novels that are written by Frank Herbert's son, along with fellow sci-fi author Kevin J. Anderson. So they wrote a big series of Dune novels, and these are basically being adapted to comic form. That's what these are. But I'm surprised. I'm not surprised, but it's kind of neat to see, like, because in the movie, obviously, it's put Dune back into the social conscious. I'm just curious how good these books are. They seem, obviously they're successful. They're doing more series. So
I always wonder though if they're milking it because like the movie came out, they're like, we're gonna launch new Dune books, you know. But
yeah,
Adventures of Rampart, I'm looking at that. That's the last issue by Tom.
Well, here's a book. Look at this one, RDV. Cult of Icarus. Is this one on your radar? This looks like an RDV book.
I saw that today. I was looking earlier. What's coming out next week? I didn't look at the description though. But look at it's vampire. It's the 80s. What is it?
It's a femme fatale book. That's why I was like, this is RDV. So I don't know. It's got a neat cover. I like the cover. I like how the cover is done. I don't know if she's a vampire or not, but there are vampires involved, and you like vampires, so
it's ridiculous. How does she see without her eyes?
Let's see. I'm just gonna scroll down here.
Doctor Who. Is anybody reading Doctor Who books, comics? I know they've been out for a while.
Jimmy?
Yeah, I know Jimmy was.
Was you?
I haven't heard from
I
him.
I know it's when the first I guess the new series 2006, you know, that came out. Like a couple of years later, they started launching a lot of the Matt Smith ones, the Terry Tennant books. So I never really got into reading them.
All right, so Barnstorm, another Scott Snyder book, is coming out.
What?
Skip, are you gonna read Barnstormers with Tula Lote?
I'm gonna give issue number 1 a shot. You know, I put issue number 2 of Clear like in my borrowed section for Comixology, and I haven't made it to read it yet, even though I love Francis Manipul art. I love Tula Lote like a little bit below Francis Manipul, so I'm gonna see if, you know, her art alone probably won't pull me in to just committing to the full series, but it's enough to get me in the door.
Commit.
And you know, and see if maybe the story, you know, if Scott Snyder another attempt. I'm like the guy of a million chances when it comes to comics. I'm still reading and buying Bendis stuff to see what I can get into. So, you know, good old Snot Rider, I'm going to give him another go on this one. And, you know, Tula Lote got me in the door, so hopefully he's appreciating her for that.
Like I said, I like the American Vampire because the guy was a dick, you know, the original vampire guy, but Cyrus Pearl was like the sweet innocent girl, and you see how she was kind of like him, but didn't want to be. So I wonder if he's gonna continue that in some of his other books. So
Maybe.
I'm always happy to read, his new books.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see what they got. I know that there's a Scott Snyder preview, and I know Barnstormers is one of the books that you can see some previous pages of. So actually, I just downloaded it, so I'm gonna take a look and read through it. But I'm looking at page number 1 right now, and I can already see Scott Snyder starting off with a whole bunch of narrative and oh gosh,
Skip don't
it,
like
it
those
literally looks.
words.
I mean, it's the way that he uses them, but
Well,
it
that-
definitely looks very similar to how Clear started off, and Ash remembers how I was feeling about the first part of of Clear.
See, wasn't Demons like that too? A lot of dialogue and narrative in the very beginning.
Scott Snyder can tend to be very exposition heavy, which is I
He's
think
like I only have 10 pages, but I have like 30 pages.
I think that's the problem that Skip has. And we were talking about tonight about the feature book. It's like show, don't tell. And Scott is a good example of one of those writers who I feel like he doesn't relinquish enough control for the artist, and he puts it all into his writing. And it's like, you're not writing a novel, you're not writing prose, you're writing a visual. It's like writing a movie and then putting lots of voiceover over the movie. People don't really, there's a place for that, but he does tend to be heavy. I'm kind of forgiving because I don't mind it as much as Skip, and because of what he gives me aside from that is worth it. And I think Clear, I ran into that when I read Clear the first issue. I was like, oh my God, this is what Skip hates. But after I read the whole issue, I was like, oh, wait a second. That whole thing that I read in the beginning wasn't just exposition heavy. It actually had a purpose. So that made me appreciate the book a lot more. Here's another book that he's got, Book of Evil. So you can just if you're a Scott Snyder fan, this one's art by Jacques. You're going to get your full.
Yeah, American Vampire was the really heavy dialogue at much. I mean, there were some things, but like a lot of it was the art. Like I was just blown away by like the time period, everything, the art and stuff really drew me in the story. So I didn't really mind the dialogue. It wasn't like, like they said, it wasn't like you're getting like just bombarded. And that's what I said, like the way Demons was, we have Demons where it was, the way it was set up was like a text format.
Yeah, Demons was the worst one today, but it's getting better. So I'm crossing my fingers. This one is billed as an illustrated prose story about. It's illustrated prose story right up Skip's alley.
Yeah.
Illustrated prose story about 4 young friends growing up in a strange near future where over 90% of the population are born as psychopaths. So it's basically
California.
It's just terrible. It's real life. I'm excited. Look, here's the thing. These Comixology books, what I love about them is there's no risk. I feel like I can jump into and try them out without having to pay like $4.99 at the comic book store and get home and be like disappointed. If I read one of these books on Comixology Unlimited, I'm like, it sucked. Move on. It didn't, I didn't waste any money. So that's kind of the way I look at it. I feel like I'm a lot more experimental in that regard. So, Venkman, why don't you buy Gold Digger? Is this a book that's up your alley?
291 issues to catch up on?
You can just jump in, I'm sure.
No, it's very anime. Very Ranma.
So you like your cheesecake to be a little bit more Western style art.
Western style? Well, it really depends. I've read some mangas before, like cheesecake mangas. But, I don't know anything about Gold Digger. So I'd have to see what it's about.
I don't know anything about it either.
Vampirus Carmilla is something I've been picking up. It's one of the magazines, they have back issue stuff. That's set in as far as the old. Basically, it's like what Vampiro was. The old magazines. You get the 5 scary stories in the inside, kind of like Eerie Comics was.
Right. Yeah.
So I've been picking those up, and it's and it's in black and white for the most part, but they're in issue 7, and it's like. If those are hard to come by.
I bet. I've never even seen one.
So For what it is, yeah, he said, and it's Warrant Publishing. It's not Warrant, but it's warranted. But I'm enjoying for what it is. Like I said, I usually don't buy a lot of magazine stuff. Look, Regs is on there. I saw that. Regs Sailor Regalski.
Yeah, Rags.
So it's a new one. So I'll be interested to see what that's all about.
I'm to suspect it's going to be about a redheaded girl who finds a way to get naked
Find a way to get
and
naked.
fights off
She just starts
horrific
off
things.
naked.
She's not naked on the cover, so those clothes are going to find a way to come off.
Cosplay uniform.
All right, I'm not seeing anything else that jumps out at me for next week as far as indies go. If you guys see anything, shout it out. But I think we can.
What's the Deadest in New York thing? That looks kind of like it might be just really progressive.
It's a Black Mask Studio. Avoid at all costs.
Okay.
So, but there's some good stuff here on the top. Sweet Paprika didn't look like my thing, but it's really popular amongst the people who liked, so that's great. Once in Future is the #1 pick by the League of Comic Geeks, and that's still going strong at number 23 issue. So I love seeing these indies go past like Marvel and DC and comic numbers that seem to get rebooted every 12 issues. Ice Cream Man's on 27. This is the #2. Firefly is on issue number 35. Way to go, Boom Studios. I used to collect it. I dropped off, I think, around issue 12. Not because it was bad, just because I had to make some cuts and it wasn't really great. It was a Greg Pak. It was a kind of paint by numbers. I kind of wish I didn't, because I like collecting books and I do love Firefly. But so that's there. Echolands is the 4th pick. Power Rangers is going strong for Boom. Boom's doing some fantastic.
Booms were actually ready to discover Dan Mora and stuff.
Oh yeah,
I was reading the reboot of the Buffy comic book stuff at the Angel too.
Well, he's the artist for Once in Future. How come you're not getting into that one?
Oh, it's on 23. I'm like, I gotta try and find issue 1. You know what? I've been busy.
Trades. Okay, that's fine. I'm just saying it is Dan Mora, so it might be up your alley.
Yeah. Dan Mora also. You know what else he was doing art for? Detective Comics.
Yeah.
The dude's very talented, and that's what kind of killed it for me when I was reading the Buffy stuff. Because I like, there's no lie, I like the show, but I didn't really read all of the Dark Horse comics that we going through them. But this was like an Elseworld story, and then because everything I said is multiverse, I know you love multiverses. Buffy has a multiverse. And the one I was reading, I was like, "Wow, this is really weird. They changed stuff." Then I realized it wasn't the main universe. That it's one of the universes, and then they switched. So they showed you different things and crossover. But what really drew me in was Dan Mora was drawing like spot on. You saw Sarah Michelle Gellar. You saw like the guy who played Rupert Giles. It was actually like a portrait. The interior was as good as the outside. And then as soon as he left, it's like, wow. After issue 5, it's like, what happened here? It's like, I just got a bait switch here. Like, the story was still good, but like the art just went downhill fast. It's like he went from like Dan Mora to Riley Rossmo in 2 seconds.
Well, I think he's overworked. I'm surprised that he's able to draw 2 books.
Like I said, like he must have just left. This was in 2019, yeah. So he probably just did that, and then he got called on like to start doing for DC. But he did a lot of Boom Studio stuff and all that.
Yeah, well, he's been doing this He's been doing this Once in Future for over 2 years.
Yeah, I love
and he's
that.
Doing Detective Comics also.
Yeah, but I love though the fact that a little studio like Boom Studios, like they've been around for a while, but they're getting these bigger book titles and more popular titles. They're getting more crowd people drawn to them.
Well, because they're getting the talent, right?
Yeah,
so you got
getting the talent.
Kyron Gillen, who is not my favorite writer, but he's popular. And then you got great art by Dan Mora. It's a slam dunk, right? Like, and this is why when James Tynan, he breaks free. His Something's Killing the Children's doing gangbusters.
They're getting a lot of the artists are coming from like Brazil and stuff, like and all that. I noticed that a lot of the Jamora and a few others,
Well,
and
that's
then like
because the big two go hunt overseas because they
yeah,
don't want to pay money, so they pay these Brazilian artists and
yeah,
Spanish artists are a big thing, and I think there's some Portuguese, and they pay them a fraction of what they would have to pay, American artists. So it's kind of exploitative.
it is, but I mean like I said, these guys are very talented. Like, I mean, I look at some of these new artists and I compare them to some of the original artists in the 80s stuff. You could just tell, like, oh my gosh, it's like these people have honed in on like stuff. They can draw similar, they can like imitate,
Mm-hmm.
and they can add, and they build onto it. So it's like you take your favorite artist for a character, and then you just compare it to the people drawing today.
Oh yeah,
Like,
for sure. I mean,
it's crazy how this guy like look at I mean Kirby is good for what he did, but you look at Kirby how he drew every block faces. Now every kid like basically looks like you're just watching a movie. Like no, take the person. It's like it's just you take a selfie with your phone, and it's on the paper. It's insane how this level of detail people are
well,
putting in. I'm just saying.
some of that's photo tracing. So,
You can't prove that. No.
So before we totally derail let's wrap this show out. This has been a long episode, but it's the end of the year, so we'll celebrate. I'm not sure how many people, if anyone's still watching. I wanted to kind of wrap up though, and when you can participate. Like, I just want to see what are you guys doing for Christmas? Anything?
But
I'll be on the Thinking Critical channel, the comics aficionados, hanging out with some people talking comics. I think it's going to be like a last man standing almost kind of thing. So I'll be over there for a while, and then other than that, I'm just walking across the street to my parents' house. My grandmother is coming up, my great uncle. Luckily, they're bringing me my bad idea books that from Monterey.
Wow!
Because some of the books I couldn't get at the shop up here. Well, I forgot I did the Final 5 thing, so I couldn't order the books from the shop that's closest to me because I did the Final 5 at the shop in Monterey. So they're bringing me those books.
That's cool when you can have like relatives and they actually like get you the books. They're like, because I'm always afraid, like when I was a kid, like, can you give me this? And then they're like, oh, we can't find this. So we got you this keychain. It's cool when you actually have like an uncle or relative who like actually like is into comic books. So they kind of have an idea where to go with look at it. And plus with today's stuff, smartphones, you can send them a picture with the comic books, like, and they just take that picture, they show it to the person inside the store, boom, they know what you got. Before you had to describe Superman, Avengers, or it's just Superman. It's the multiple titles. So now it's like, I love that you can actually like just like FaceTime too, like when you're in the store. So you left out of that stuff, Plus you're saving up shipping.
Nice.
Yeah, thank you, technology.
I got fortunate. I normally don't do much for Christmas. I don't have much in the way of family or anything, but I got invited to a couple of dinners, so I'm feeling pretty blessed when it comes to that. I think as I get older, I realize Christmas is a lot more about your family and loved ones, and kind of similar to Thanksgiving, just having, thanks for blessings in your life and so forth. Try to remember the reason for the season. Try not to get all caught up in the commercialism of it all. So I'm very thankful that that's going to be the case. I'm not. Funny enough, though, I'm not actually doing. No, I am doing something on Christmas Day. So yeah, I got a Christmas dinner on Christmas Day. Got a Christmas dinner Christmas Eve, and another Christmas dinner on the 27th. I'm going 3 Christmas dinners. Technically 4.
That's awesome.
I'm going to one tomorrow. Oh man,
you better get another notch in that belt.
Yeah, serious.
Good food.
Serious. So I've been very blessed. I'm thankful for that.
Cool.
Like I said, normally my Christmases are pretty much lonely affairs, but I'm hoping that everyone else is getting to have something. If you know, family is so important to have around you, and hopefully everyone does, and hopefully anyone that's listening to the shows has enjoyed. Not that we're all family, but in a way we are, in a looser connection. Venkman, are you doing anything special for Christmas?
Going by my other sister's place, so she lives a little closer. I like going the other one because she's like 40-minute drive. I listen to my podcast when I drive there. But yeah, I'm going over there just for a couple hours, and then Angleton was talking about having an auction / hangout stream,
On
a
Christmas
little
Day?
mini auction Christmas Day, because they said it's him and the kids and gals, and by that time end of the night, it's
Cool.
thought about So for people who aren't don't really, people are older, maybe have their parents have passed on, or they don't have their only siblings, or anybody who just, can't travel because of lockdowns,
Right.
something to hang out with, something to keep your mind, so we can do that. Christmas Eve, he was going to talk about doing a comic book reading. So anybody who who isn't busy, isn't going to church, or has time, just wants to hang out, just either listen to or join in. You have a microphone. I'll probably be. I don't know if I'll be there for the Saturday night, but I'll be there Friday night. Like I said, I'll just be eating food, just hang out with the family, and then maybe I'll be online. If you guys are in the Discord group, there's always someone on Discord to talk to if you're lonely. That's the thing, because it can be kind of depressing for those who don't have families, or the family can't make it because of the whole COVID situation like that. There's always people out there. Just reach out.
Yeah, for sure, absolutely. Reach out on the Discord thing too. If people want to chat on Discord, send some texts out. Say, hey, I'm looking to chat or whatever. Or sometimes one thing you can do is just hang out in the voice room while you're doing things. Sometimes people are always waiting to see if someone's in the voice room before they go. So someone's got to be first. So one thing I encourage is look, if you're just sitting around reading some comics or watching some TV, or whatever, you just, throw yourself in the voice room and see if someone shows up. And if they don't, you still got to read comics and watch TV. And if they do, maybe you start something up. I think Discord also set up a new thing where you can schedule a chat. I haven't actually used it yet, but I saw it on the release notes. So I'm going to have to experiment with that. I'm going to, upon what you're saying here, I think I'm going to try to do that. Actually, I'm going to make a conscious choice. It'll probably be later in the evening, but I think on Christmas Eve, I'm going to get on Discord, and maybe, just hang out if anyone's willing to do that, through midnight. We can transition over to Christmas Day, because like I said, I'm going to the dinner, and then I'll be coming home, and I usually keep late hours anyway. And then Christmas Day, I'm not doing anything until the afternoon, and then I might be back on Christmas night as well. So yeah, if anyone wants to hang out and talk and shoot the stuff, I'm gonna try to make a conscious effort for that, because I definitely know what it's like to not have family and stuff. And so I'm hoping everyone does. I hope everyone has a good holiday. Find some blessings in your life. If you have an option to feast away. And Merry Christmas to everyone.
If you got family and you have a chance to spend time with them, spend time with them. Don't worry about what we're doing. But if you don't, if you're done with it, you want to talk, reach out. Answers.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I mean, you got some downtime afterwards, for sure.
Ash will live stream his dinner, so you can watch him eating.
No.
You'll never see him eating. You'll see the hands picking up the food with the fork, and spoon. And then you get the ASMR, just hear him just chewing.
All right. Well, I think this show has come to a grinding halt. I appreciate you guys being on here. I appreciate everyone that's been listening to us this long. I like kind of doing the hangout stuff at the tail end, so that people can kind of come and go, leave. So I don't know. I'll talk to Skip later, but anyone's listening, feedback's always appreciated. what do you think? Do you like having the feature content pushed right up front, and then you don't have to stick around, or would you like to see the feature like do all the BS up front and then get to the feature as the dessert?
I think it's better because at the end, because we don't want to go on too much, and then they're just gonna hang out stream, and then people get the thing, and like, well, some people might want the hangout, not
Yeah.
the actual thing. But then for the people who just want to just hear what you guys are talking about, and you don't want to have it hang out, they don't want to wait. So, like I said, it's chaos when I come on here. So have me at the end.
You are the agent of chaos. But since it is the final show of the year, we let Venkman out of the cage, and
that's not
he
good.
blessed us with his presence, and now we
Armageddon.
got to try to coax him back in. throw some treats in there. Maranya is going to be baking a ham, so it's time to head over to Maranya's house.
That's the one thing too. I don't like ham. They're having ham dinner. It's like
You don't like ham?
Not pineapple. Ham sandwich, I'm fine. But when you put pineapple on it,
wait, where did pineapple come from? We're talking about ham.
Yeah, ham. People
Ham.
they glaze the ham with pineapple.
Not always.
Well, in my family they do.
I mean, sometimes people put peanut butter on a hamburger, but I don't automatically associate peanut butter on hamburgers.
Well, at my household, they put pineapple on the thing.
Okay.
Because
All right.
I'm the only one who doesn't like pineapple in the house.
I just want to let you know, RDV, that is not an always thing. Sometimes it's just a smoked ham. Sometimes it's just a honey glaze. Sometimes.
I wish I had that.
Okay.
It's a good 36 years. Hasn't changed.
I love pineapple, so I wouldn't mind. All right. You got any final statements, Skip?
Last Old Testament of the year.
Thanks everybody for joining us through the conception of the show all the way to now. It's always fun hanging out with y'all. You've been great at commenting and giving us recommendations to check out on the show, as well as personally for ourselves. And the best part of the show, I enjoy talking to RDV and Ash, but the best part of it is really the fact that everybody comes in and brings something to the table whenever we do this show. Even the people just viewing. So thanks everybody for being a part of it.
Amen. Have a Merry Christmas, everybody, and stay safe.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Kwanzaa, Happy Holidays, all that fun stuff.